Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell.
Lauren was still snuggled up in bed. She had seen her husband off to work and decided to lie down for a while. The blanket still held Brian's warmth, and the woman clutched it to her, squeezing her eyes shut in pleasure. The phone beeped. The woman opened her eyes again. A message popped up on the screen. "Lauren, your husband is cheating on you with his coworker. I'm fed up." She tossed the phone aside. Lauren had long been accustomed to such messages. They came with enviable regularity, so the woman did not pay attention to them. "Right or don't write, Brian is mine." The squeak came again. "What's that?" Lauren was surprised to see a photo of her husband kissing a girl. "So that's how you are with me?" Tears boiled in her eyes. She jumped up from the bed as if sleep was gone. "I won't leave it like that. You'll answer for everything." "And I'm a fool." Hurriedly dressing, she said, "Trusted him. Where were my eyes?" A few minutes later, the woman was already rushing in the car to the office of their firm. Having parked the car, with a decisive step went into the building. What a scoundrel! My head was pounding. He dared to trade me for some gray mouse. I'm going to give him a hard time, hoping I won't find out. Lauren flew down the corridor, resentment at her husband tearing at her heart. Is he there? Without even saying hello to the secretary, she rushed to her husband's office. "Lauren, you can't go in there." The girl jumped up and lunged, running in front of the furious woman. "You won't like what you see. Don't get in the way or you'll get in trouble. I decide what to do." But the secretary blocked the door to Brian's office. "The chief's busy." He asked not to be disturbed. "Stop it. You can't just barge into his office. Get out of my way." A furious Lauren tried to push the girl away, but she stood firm. "You think I don't know what this scumbag is up to?" "Let go. You have no right to forbid me to enter his room. I'm the boss, and you're the errand girl." "Lauren," the secretary pleaded, ignoring the barbs, "I'll be fired if I don't keep you." "Please wait a couple minutes. I'll report to Brian. He has forbidden to let anyone in, including you. You want to warn him? And I want to see for myself what my husband is so busy doing at work that my wife is not allowed to enter freely." Lauren dodged and kicked the door to the office with her foot, and it swung open with unexpected ease. He didn't even close the door. It went through my head. "You've lost your conscience, you womanizer. I warned you not to go in there." Guiltily, said the girl, and stepped aside, letting the agitated woman pass. "Oh, that's what's going on here." Lauren even choked with anger when she saw her husband standing with his pants down, between the legs of the half-naked girl who was still lying on the desk. "And I did not immediately believe that you are having fun here. I thought the envious were lying. There wasn't a shadow of doubt in you. And you." The woman jumped at Brian, swung and hit him with her purse. He tried to intercept her, but his wife let go of the purse and began to beat him with her fists wherever she could. "I'll show you how to cheat on me," she angrily chanted. "How dare you cheat on me? I'll destroy you. How can you have sex with some girl right in your office, in the middle of working hours? Get out," she shouted, smiling, gloating girls who had time to bounce away from Lauren, who had gone wild and was now silently watching the ugly scene. She immediately grabbed her clothes and ran away. "Dad gave you everything, treated you like a son, and you ungrateful bitch, ruined everything. I hate you. I won't forgive you. I won't forgive you." In a frenzy, shouted Lauren at her husband, flashing her eyes. "Why are you yelling like a market woman?" Brian wrinkled his nose, shortening himself from his wife's blows. "I'm just having fun. I haven't yelled yet. It's not enough to kill you. What's wrong with you? Tell me. I do everything for you. And you dumped me for some teenage girl. Why did you ruin everything? We had a good, solid family, and you turned it into nothing. You shameless, lustful scoundrel. How can you do this to me? Leave me alone." The man swung around and slapped her. "Stop your hysterics. Stop embarrassing me in front of my subordinates." "Well, have you calmed down?" he asked, looking at the stunned wife. "Why are you here to make a showdown?" He leisurely cleaned himself up. "Are you completely crazy? Hands on your husband. Did you hit me?" The stunned Lauren grabbed her cheek, where her husband's palm was imprinted. "How dare you hit me? Even my father never hit me. I'm fed up with your jealousy." She came and stormed into my office. "Who called you here? You've been following me? Is that all you have to say to me?" You expecting an apology? He was already dressed and comfortable in his chair. "Don't get your hopes up. I'm not sorry you found out. I've wanted to tell you for a long time." He looked defiantly at his wife. "I'm even glad of it. Now my hands are free. How could you do this to me? When you asked me to marry you, you said you loved me. I believed you. I'm begging you." Brian laughed, jumped to his feet, straightened his shirt, shook the invisible dust from his jacket, and approached his wife. "I never loved you. You disgust me, and I live with you because I have no other choice. Otherwise, I would not even look in your direction. I like other women." "What? You didn't, Brian?" Lauren's lips quivered with resentment and tears came to her eyes. "Are you saying that on purpose? To spite me? Why? What did you want? Did you think I got married of my own free will?" "Yes, I had to do it. I don't believe you." Lauren naively flapped her doll-like eyelashes, looking at her husband confusedly. "Are you just saying that to hurt me? Stop it right now. Your father bought me for you, okay? That's the only truth. Everything else is a farce. You're lying. Dad couldn't have done it. You made it up. Are you angry that I caught you with that girl? I don't care what you think of me. Charles forced me to marry you because my father's firm was on the verge of bankruptcy. Charles promised him money if I agreed to marry him. Only we never got the money. He asked for a loan, refused, laughed at our request. My father was at his feet begging for help, and yours he mocked, humiliated. So there can't be any love, only profit. Didn't Daddy tell you anything?" "Ay," Brian said mockingly. "He didn't want to disturb the delicate strings of your soul, and now your favorite daughter is disappointed. I'm sorry, the truth is always bitter. You're not making any sense. Don't you dare insult your father. You're nothing. You're not worth your father's little finger. How could he trust you? It's bullshit to buy a husband for your daughter. I may be nothing, but Charles isn't perfect either. Open your eyes. Have you still got your rose-colored glasses on? Then I feel sorry for you. I can't believe my father would do such a thing." "Of course," Brian said with a sneer. "He's a saint to you, and you should ask him if I'm telling the truth or not. I don't think he'll tell you, because he's used to lying and twisting. Don't talk about him like that. I'll ask your father. If you talk bad about him, you'll be out of the company like a cork, and don't expect me to hide your cheating. You'll get hurt for it, and I don't care about you or your father anymore." Brian said, "Run to your daddy. I was just about to put an end to all this. By the way, don't bother. I'll file for divorce myself. You don't know how relieved I am right now. You wouldn't dare. I'll do it with pleasure. I've been waiting for the right moment for a long time. What are you waiting for? That's it, darling. The joke's over. He laughed out loud. Sorry, it's a harsh truth of life, baby. People break up sometimes now. Leave my office. He got serious. I have work to do. Lauren stared in silence at the man she thought she was madly in love with not so long ago. It turns out I didn't know you at all, she said slowly. I don't know why you arranged all this, but I'll figure it out. The woman promised and grabbed the doorknob. I'll make you apologize to me, and the divorce so easily you will not get. You will run to your father to repent. She left the office and went to the parking lot. What an asshole! I don't believe a word he says. She convinced herself. He dared to say anything against her father, who had always trusted him as if he were his own. A new red foreign car was waiting for her, and the woman, angered by her husband's words, got into the car, slamming the door in her heart. If Brian was telling the truth, she talked to herself, remembering to keep her eyes on the road. Father will have to explain himself to me, even if it was as he described. Why not talk to me? Why cheat? I love him, don't I? In the 5 years we've been together, I've never allowed him to be humiliated or insulted. And him? Lauren's tears came to her eyes angrily, brushed them off her cheek. Money, it's all about money. But could money buy happiness? Parking the car in front of the house, Lauren entered the living room. Lauren, the mother in tears, rushed to meet her daughter. I beg you, at least tell him he can't drink. He has a heart condition. He doesn't listen to me at all. He came home from work like a madman, sat in his office with papers, and drinks cognac. I don't know what to do with him. Talk to him. Maybe you can convince him to lie down. I'm worried he's not taking care of himself. Mom? A young woman clung to her mother. Brian left me. I caught him with another woman in his office. He told me so much. Ah! Miranda splashed her hands. What is it? Trouble has come. Open the gate. Father, do you hear what your daughter is saying? The woman opened the door to the study. Daddy. The daughter, sobbing, rushed to Charles, who was sitting in a chair, black as a cloud. In one hand, the man held papers, and in the other, a glass of cognac. He cheated on me, your favorite. I caught him with one of your employees. She jabbed at her father's shoulder. Do something. He didn't even apologize, he yelled at me. He hit me. That's the first time I've ever seen him like that. He's out of his mind. I'm going to get that bastard. The look on the man's face didn't bode well. Who does he think he is? I'll put him in his place in no time. He's got me all over him. He thinks he can handle me. Look at these documents. He's ruined us. Charles, wiping the sweat from his face, loosened the tie on his shirt and grabbed his phone. Lauren took the papers from her father's hands, ran her eyes over them, and turned pale. Dad, how could he pull this off? I can't imagine. Father frowned. All I know is he managed to slip these in amongst the other papers. Somehow he put my guard down. I don't even remember when. I had no reason not to trust him, you know? Yeah, we haven't been doing so well lately, but we'd manage. The firm's been making a regular profit, and here it turns out that the property is mortgaged, and the firm. He waved his hand in despair. You never sign any document without reading it. Did you voluntarily give him everything? I'm still sane, the man said, leaving an inheritance to some hustler. He won't. I'll get to the truth, and then I'll pull his arms and legs out and sue him. What he's up to, I don't recognize him. What's going to happen to us now? I'm not just gonna give up. Charles looked at his daughter, then looked at his wife, opened his mouth to try to breathe, dropped the phone, and clutched his heart. Charles! Miranda cried out wildly and rushed to her husband. "Mom, call an ambulance." Lauren quickly untied her tie, undid the buttons of her shirt, ran to the window, opened it, then returned, looking anxiously at her father's changing face. The ambulance came at once, mother and daughter standing bewildered, huddled together. The doctor, having examined Charles, helplessly waved his hands and said, "It's too late. He can't be helped. He's had a massive heart attack. I'm sorry for your loss." He made a phone call, reported what had happened. A few minutes later, another car arrived. Charles was loaded onto a stretcher, covered with a white sheet and carried away. The doctor said goodbye to the women and left too. "Daughter, how are we going to live now?" Mother broke the silence. "I don't know, Mommy. We have to tell our relatives." Her mother spoke in a colorless voice. Lauren did not answer. She realized that the most difficult thing ahead of them was to go through the funeral. The cemetery was crowded. It seemed to Lauren that the farewell ceremony would never end. People came and went to the grave, business partners, friends, neighbors, and numerous relatives, near and far. "What a man has left us." They were quietly talking among themselves. "Business house, everything was on him. It's bad that there is no hair. My daughter won't be able to take care of it." A son-in-law, of course, can, but the son-in-law is a stranger. "Mommy, be patient." Lauren saw that her mother was holding back from falling and held her tightly under her arm. It would all be over soon. Miranda cried quietly. "How will I be without Charles? He was everything to me. I know nothing. I'm helpless. We lived together for so many years. It seemed like we'd be together forever, and him. He left me alone. You're not alone, I'm with you. Let's not talk about it now. We'll talk at home." "Wow." Lauren heard a whisper behind her back and was glad that her mother did not notice anything around her. The son-in-law didn't come to his father-in-law's funeral. Ungrateful. Charles did so much for him. I hear they're having some kind of business disagreement. Apparently, it's not all smooth sailing for the family. The woman hated to hear the gossip, but she endured it for the sake of her mother. And here you are, you imposter. How did you turn your tongue? Call me an imposter and defame the good name of my father. Why did you come here? This is not a show. They forgot to ask you." The girl snapped at him. Lauren looked around. People were quiet. Some smiled gloatingly, waiting for a huge scandal, but most of them looked at the women sympathetically. Suddenly, there was a prolonged groan. Lauren saw her mother's face twist unnaturally. She sank straight to the ground at her daughter's feet. "Mommy, what's wrong?" The daughter bent over her mother in alarm. Miranda could not utter anything, only moved something dumbly, her eyes staring at her with meaningless eyes. "Urgent, a doctor!" shouted someone. The surrounding people surrounded the women. "What? What happened?" "Poor Miranda. Such grief, and here. Who's that girl? I've never seen her before." People in white coats came running over. Lauren, as if anticipating such a situation, had arranged in advance for a medical team to be on duty during the funeral. "Stand back, everyone," the doctor ordered. They put Miranda on a stretcher and carried her to the car. Lauren cried, seeing the ambulance with her eyes. Why? Why did this happen to us? She wanted to run home from the cemetery immediately, to throw herself into bed, cover herself with a blanket, fall asleep, and wake up in the morning and everything would be as it was before. A living father, a healthy mother, her and Brian holding her. She needed his support now more than ever. Lauren. She heard a voice above her ear, her father's chauffeur. "Everyone was already gone. Why don't I take you to the hospital? You shouldn't be alone here." "Yes, John." Waking up from her heavy thoughts, the woman answered, "Let's go and see how Mom's doing. Don't worry." The driver tried to reassure her, stopping the car at the hospital. "Everything will be all right. Miranda had too much to endure today, so the nerves could not stand it. And this girl, where did she come from?" "That Mary." Lauren shrugged. "She works in our firm. I can't imagine why she would make such a monstrous statement. The father never said he had another child somewhere. I'm dizzy with the news. Thanks for the ride. Can I wait for you? I've got time." "No, you go home. I can make my own way. You should have seen what a sensation my spectacular appearance at the cemetery caused. Everyone opened their mouths. The surprise factor kicked in, and your wife was standing there, saying something about how you could bring your father's good name into disrepute. The girl was doing her Lauren impression. 'Look at me, I'm in mourning.' She spun around in front of the mirror. I'd give anything to witness that picture. Yeah, you've lost a lot. I won't forget the stupid look on their faces as they were dumbfounded by my announcement. Charles is an icon for them. They pray to him. Nobody knows his real name, and nobody stopped you. No one dared to contradict me or stand up for your wife. She's not my wife." Brian frowned. "I'll divorce her soon. I just have to shake off some formalities. I've waited too long for the right opportunity, but that's it now. Putting up with 5 whole years of not having the woman I loved by my side was a lot of fun. It was warming to think that it would all be over soon. Okay, we'll talk about that later." He waved it off. And why my mother-in-law, my dear, did not speak? It's not like her. My mother was so upset when she heard I was her dead husband's daughter. You should have seen the way they all ran when she fell. It was so much fun. What happened to her? I have no idea. Mary shrugged indifferently. All that matters is that she heard what I said. Now everyone knows whose daughter you are. Are you happy? I'll leave no stone unturned in their business. By the way, I heard the crowd talking about you, wondering why you didn't come to see your father-in-law off. You don't regret it? He made you his partner, didn't he? I can't stand the whole family, especially the former one. You don't know how disgusting it was to go to bed with her and pretend to be in love. I hated her and despised her. That's what you're like." He came right up to Magoo. Passionate, hot. The man kissed her greedily on the lips. "So sweet. You make me crazy. No woman can compare to you. You say that too." She flirtatiously shot her eyes at him. "When I have a lot of money, I'll be able to compete with anyone." You know, Brian ran his hand through her unruly strands of curly black hair. "I fell in love with you the first time I saw you. Even though you're kind of rude, I'm crazy about you. Where was I supposed to learn manners? Your Lauren was raised by her parents, and I survived in an orphanage. You poor thing." Brian touched his lips lightly to hers. "But I've learned to take what's mine, and I'll never back down. Will you help me?" She asked, responding to the kiss, but Brian remained silent, his mind preoccupied with his own thoughts. "Mary, get ready," said the pretty, well-dressed woman without saying hello, wrinkling her nose in a squeamish way and looking around the poorly furnished room. "We haven't much time. I'm not going anywhere with you." The little girl, looking at the uninvited guests with a scowl. "This is my home, my mother." "Mary, my granddaughter," wailed grandmother, grabbing her head. "What is it? What are you doing here?" "I didn't call you." Emma, barely able to move her tongue, stared at the uninvited guests with cloudy eyes. She reeked of alcohol and was trying to sit upright on the sofa. "Where are you taking her?" "That's my daughter. We're taking her to the orphanage." A girl in a police uniform took a document out of a leather folder and handed it to the grandmother. "Here, a court order to terminate parental rights. I won't let you in." Emma made an attempt to get up, but couldn't resist, collapsed back on the sofa. "Why are you taking a child away from its mother?" "By what right?" "What kind of mother are you?" The pretty woman threw in her heart. "You drink all day long. You don't take care of your daughter. The school complains that she skips classes, and I don't have the opportunity to buy her new boots. She won't walk in the cold puddles in her holy ones, will she?" Emma hiccuped drunkenly. "Give me the money, I'll buy them all, and let her go to school or something. But I'll always have money for a bottle." "Enough bickering. Mary's coming with us, and that's it. I can look after my granddaughter." The grandmother stood up for the girl. "We can't leave her with you. You're an invalid. You need care. Mary, let's go. At least at the orphanage she'll be fed and clothed. She won't miss school. What does she see here? A drunken mother and drinking buddies." The woman firmly pulled Mary towards the exit. "Mommy, Mommy," cried the girl, clinging to her mother. "Don't give me away, please. Don't give me away. I will do everything at home." The grandmother cried quietly, and Emma fell asleep as soon as her daughter's cries subsided and the front door slammed shut. And so Mary's life began. Her mother never showed up at the orphanage. Only her grandmother came once and hugged her, crying, "My granddaughter, my orphan, what a grief we have. Your mother died. I didn't keep her safe. You and I are the only ones left. I wish you could live with me, but they wouldn't let me. They say it's not allowed." At the cemetery, standing by her mother's grave, Mary did not cry. She was suffocated by resentment towards her, and also she was deeply wounded by the words of the woman who came to say goodbye to Emma. So young. They shook their heads, whispering among themselves, "That's what vodka has done to a man. She's completely drunk. How can you kill a man like that? They say it was bad vodka. I wish she'd lived longer. She left the girl an orphan. She put such a burden on her mother. Mary, her grandmother saw her off after the funeral, back to the orphanage. I asked you to take her on weekends and vacations, to help me with the garden and at home. I can't cope on my own. Emma, though she was a drunk, but a hard worker, and now I miss her so much, I have only one hope for you." The girl came to the village reluctantly. What to do there? Every time going to her grandmother, she told her friends. In the vegetable garden, like a cursed, from morning to evening, you have to bend your back, wash. It's not like in a city apartment, no worries, and there are only beds. Yes, grandmother always moaning that she has a pain, another hurts. But you have a grandmother, at least someone is waiting for you. The girls were jealous. It's not good to be alone. But Mary didn't like this life, and on one of her visits she didn't find her grandmother at home. So she was taken to the hospital, the neighbor said. Heart attack, we called an ambulance. It became very bad after the death of her daughter. We are afraid, as if she did not follow Emma. The worried girl rushed to visit the sick woman. Mary, I think I'm finished. Slowly with effort, said the grandmother, looking with kind, sad eyes at her granddaughter. What are you? She looked at her fearfully. You will be cured. I feel that I have not long left in this world. How I would like to wait until you become an adult and independent, but it seems not destiny. Listen to me and don't interrupt me. I can no longer keep heavy on my heart. I promised my daughter to keep quiet, but now she's gone. I think you should know the truth about your birth. You are the daughter of a rich man named Parker Charles. You'll find his address at the bottom of your mother's jewelry box. I don't know if he lives there now, but you're a smart girl. You'll know how to find him in town. He did a bad thing to your mother, turning her head and leaving her pregnant. I thought things would work out between them, but he got cold feet. Emma, she'd never taken a drop of vodka before, and when Charles refused to recognize you, she began to drink a shot glass in grief. She loved him very much, and then somehow she got sucked in, started drinking, got fired from her job. And that's how my daughter's life went down the drain. Don't hold it against your mother. She wanted to be happy. She thought there he was, her prince on a white horse, but rich people don't need such simple girls. He married his partner's daughter. He must be a big man now, and he never asked how we lived. Mary asked, feeling the hatred boiling in her heart, and he never helped. No, we never saw him again. Grandmother was silent, gathering her strength, which she had less and less by the minute. I don't know if I was right to tell you about you, but I didn't want to take the secret of your appearance with me to the grave. If you want to find him, you'll find him. If you don't want to find him, that's up to you. Maybe he'll be glad to meet you. Maybe he won't even want to know. You go, I need to rest. The old woman closed her eyes. Mary saw a tear roll down her cheek. She ran her hand through her gray hair, kissed her cheek, and left. Mary never saw her grandmother again. I'm going to town, the girl told her friends at the graduation party. If I look for my daddy, and I'll get alimony from him, and if he doesn't want it, my revenge will be terrible. I'll ruin him, I'll avenge my mom, and he'll pay for every tear she shed. Let him feel what it's like to live in poverty. Revenge is not a good ally. Her friends warned her. After all these years, I don't think he'll be happy to see you. We'll see about that. There's an evil light in Mary's eyes. I don't want to miss an opportunity to nibble on a rich relative. Have you tracked him down yet? Of course I have. Proudly looking at her friends, the girl replied. Businessman with the name Parker, quite a well-known person. I had no trouble finding him. I'll make him pay the full price. Mary studied at college, but did not forget to follow the life of her father. She got the right moment and joined his firm as a manager. I can't do it alone. She thought in the evenings after work, plotting her revenge. It would be nice to find someone like-minded. The choice fell on her son-in-law, Charles, a young, interesting man, obviously deprived of female affection. It wouldn't be difficult to get him to marry her, pondered the young seductress. I'm sure after the first night he will be, for my sake, ready for anything, and I will not miss my own. She a couple of times, as if unintentionally caught Brian's eye, frankly showing her charms and appealing looking at him. The man immediately accepted the game, and a week later their first meeting took place in Mary's modest apartment. I'd really like to stay with you, he whispered in her ear, kissing her in the floor of the dark hallway and regretfully looking at his watch. But I'm expected at home. I'm going to fulfill my conjugal duty. It won't be easy after you. You're so sweet, but I'll close my eyes and imagine you in my arms. Are you not ashamed of cheating on your wife? The girl jokingly pushed him away, pretending to be modest. I don't think about her at all. I'm sick of her. Where did you come from? Why didn't you meet her before? He said, getting more and more atomized. For your sake, I would even go against my father's will. Brian. Mary laughed coquettishly, breaking out of his embrace. You should go. I don't want any trouble with your father-in-law. If he finds out about us, I'll be out of a job, and you'll have to take on the responsibility of supporting me, and I don't want that. I'm not used to being a kept woman. I shall miss you. Kissing his mistress one last time, the man reluctantly left. The meetings became more and more frequent. Mary was no longer embarrassed to come to Brian's office. I do not have half an hour for anyone. warned the lover's secretary, and signed up with his mistress in the office. "Can you get some information for me about your father-in-law's firm?" Mary once asked Brian, sitting on the desk in front of him in a seductively short skirt. "Why?" The man wondered, running his hands under the sheer blouse. "I want to know how promising she is." "What do you want? You're not going to marry Charles, are you?" Brian laughed. "How I would like to wait until you become an adult and independent, but it seems not destiny. Listen to me and don't interrupt me. I can no longer keep heavy on my heart. I promised my daughter to keep quiet, but now she's gone. I think you should know the truth about your birth. You are the daughter of a rich man named Parker Charles. You'll find his address at the bottom of your mother's jewelry box. I don't know if he lives there now, but you're a smart girl. You'll know how to find him in town. He did a bad thing to your mother, turning her head and leaving her pregnant. I thought things would work out between them, but he got cold feet." Emma, she'd never taken a drop of vodka before, and when Charles refused to recognize you, she began to drink a shot glass in grief. She loved him very much, and then somehow she got sucked in, started drinking, got fired from her job. And that's how my daughter's life went down the drain. Don't hold it against your mother. She wanted to be happy. She thought there he was, her prince on a white horse, but rich people don't need such simple girls. He married his partner's daughter. He must be a big man now. And he never asked how we lived. Mary asked, feeling the hatred boiling in her heart. And he never helped? No, we never saw him again. Grandmother was silent, gathering her strength, which she had less and less by the minute. I don't know if I was right to tell you about you, but I didn't want to take the secret of your appearance with me to the grave. If you want to find him, you'll find him. If you don't want to find him, that's up to you. Maybe he'll be glad to meet you. Maybe he won't even want to know. You go, I need to rest." The old woman closed her eyes. Mary saw a tear roll down her cheek. She ran her hand through her gray hair, kissed her cheek, and left. Mary never saw her grandmother again. "I'm going to town," the girl told her friends at the graduation party. "If I look for my daddy, and I'll get alimony from him, and if he doesn't want it, my revenge will be terrible. I'll ruin him, I'll avenge my mom, and he'll pay for every tear she shed. Let him feel what it's like to live in poverty. Revenge is not a good ally. Her friends warned her. After all these years, I don't think he'll be happy to see you. We'll see about that. There's an evil light in Mary's eyes. I don't want to miss an opportunity to nibble on a rich relative. Have you tracked him down yet?" "Of course I have." Proudly looking at her friends, the girl replied. "Businessman with the name Parker. Quite a well-known person. I had no trouble finding him. I'll make him pay the full price." Mary studied at college, but did not forget to follow the life of her father. She got the right moment and joined his firm as a manager. "I can't do it alone," she thought in the evenings after work, plotting her revenge. It would be nice to find someone like-minded. The choice fell on her son-in-law Charles, a young, interesting man, obviously deprived of female affection. It wouldn't be difficult to get him to marry her, pondered the young seductress. "I'm sure after the first night he will be, for my sake, ready for anything, and I will not miss my own." She a couple of times, as if unintentionally caught Brian's eye, frankly showing her charms and appealing looking at him. The man immediately accepted the game, and a week later their first meeting took place in Mary's modest apartment. "I'd really like to stay with you," he whispered in her ear, kissing her in the floor of the dark hallway and regretfully looking at his watch. "But I'm expected at home. I'm going to fulfill my conjugal duty. It won't be easy after you. You're so sweet. But I'll close my eyes and imagine you in my arms. Are you not ashamed of cheating on your wife?" The girl jokingly pushed him away, pretending to be modest. I don't think about her at all. I'm sick of her. Where did you come from? Why didn't you meet her before? He said, getting more and more atomized. For your sake, I would even go against my father's will. Brian. Mary laughed coquettishly, breaking out of his embrace. You should go. I don't want any trouble with your father-in-law. If he finds out about us, I'll be out of a job, and you'll have to take on the responsibility of supporting me. And I don't want that. I'm not used to being a kept woman. I shall miss you. Kissing his mistress one last time, the man reluctantly left. The meetings became more and more frequent. Mary was no longer embarrassed to come to Brian's office. I do not have half an hour for anyone, warned the lover's secretary, and signed up with his mistress in the office. Can you get some information for me about your father-in-law's firm? Mary once asked Brian, sitting on the desk in front of him in a seductively short skirt. Why? The man wondered, running his hands under the sheer blouse. I want to know how promising she is. What do you want? You're not going to marry Charles, are you? Brian laughed. I'd like to have a young mother-in-law like that. It would be easier for us to date. Are you crazy? Mary jumped up from the table, adjusting her clothes. I can't marry my own father. What? The man stared at her in amazement. Charles, your father? Is this some kind of joke? He's the one who made a joke of my mom when he left her pregnant. I'm telling you in all seriousness. And you have proof. Of course I do. What do you take me for? I know I can't take anyone's word for it. I'm willing to take a DNA test right now. I have nothing to fear. It's an interesting situation. Brian said thoughtfully. Charles doesn't know about this yet. No. Why don't you say anything? Are you satisfied with a modest role as manager, with a ridiculous salary? I'd have claimed my inheritance a long time ago, all in good time. Mary declared arrogantly, I'm going to take over his firm and put his family out of business, and you're going to help me do it. She walked over to Brian, put her hands on his shoulder, stared at him with the gaze of a predator ready to swallow its prey. Will you not deny a poor girl to avenge her mother's death? For your sake, I would do anything. I have a score to settle with this family, and your appearance will speed up the outcome. That's good. I knew right away that I could count on you. Having secured the support of her lover, the girl mentally rubbed her hands together, anticipating the opportunity to get even with her father. But Brian was not a simpleton. He had his own interest in this matter. I'm not going to let the business get out of my hands, he thought, as he caressed Mary's young body and indulged in the pleasures of love. I'm not going to share it with anyone. My father-in-law must answer for his father's humiliation. I'll only rest when I own all of Parker's property, and Mary will help me without knowing it. That silly girl knows nothing about business, but she's got to channel her desire for revenge on her father. Mary, Brian suggested the day Charles had his seizure. It's time to come out of the shadows and announce to the relatives who the real heiress is. You think? She perked up. Is it time? It was time to put a stop to this whole thing. Brian already had the documents signed by his father-in-law to hand over the management of the company to him. The young man had pulled off the scam with Mary's help, too. Young, charming beauty became a great distraction when signing important papers. There was one final touch in a properly played combination. Get a divorce from his wife. Ready to get even with your mother's killer? Your plea will horrify Charles. His aching heart can hardly bear the news, but just to make sure he gets it, give him this. He handed Mary the papers. What's in here? Important papers. This is between Charles and me. It's none of your business. If you do it right, We'll soon have the rights to run the business of our mutual enemy." He held the file in his hands for a moment. "You don't feel sorry for him at all." "What?" "He didn't feel sorry for my pregnant mother. I won't feel remorse. If that's what you mean, my heart hasn't known pity for a long time." The girl took a determined step toward her father's office. "Mary," Charles looked at her in surprise, taking a break from his work. "Any questions?" "Yes." The girl grinned. "The most important one. Do you remember this woman?" She put a picture of her mother on his desk. The man turned pale. "I see you recognize her." "I'm your daughter, Daddy." Mary said with a sneer. "You can't be." With excitement, the blood rushed to Charles's head. "Do you realize what you're saying?" "Why not?" The girl squinted her eyes angrily. "The two of you were having a great time in bed, seducing her. Didn't you guess how it could end?" "That's my mother." "Foolish enough to be knave enough to fall for your charms and get knocked up. Why bring up the past?" the man asked. His heart clenched uneasily with a premonition of trouble. "Soul wounds have long since healed. You won't even ask where my mother is. You are not interested in knowing how I lived all this time." The girl sat down on the chair, making it clear that she would not leave until she got answers to her questions. "Look." Charles shakily took out a pill and put it in his mouth. "I didn't know Emma had given birth. Or didn't want to know? I played with it, enjoyed it and forgot about it, threw it away like a boring thing. We parted without mutual complaint. I told her I wasn't going to marry her. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't because of my obligations to my father. I don't know what she imagined, but I made no promises, and she knew we'd never be together. She loved you. She started drinking out of grief, and they took me to an orphanage. But I really didn't know that Emma had given birth. She didn't write anything. I thought we'd agreed on everything." "Why did you live in an orphanage? Where's Emma?" "I've come to my senses." The girl looked at him angrily. "She died, drank herself to death, and then her grandmother. Do you think I had a happy childhood?" "Yes, I admit I'm sorry to your mom, but we're adults." Everyone knew what they were getting into. Charles felt worse and worse. His heart was pounding in his chest, and it was hard to breathe. Why talk about it? Especially now that Emma was gone. "What do you want?" "That's a strange question." "I want you to recognize me as your daughter and give me everything I'm legally entitled to." "You didn't think I came here to cry on your bosom, did you?" "I have someone to feel sorry for. You see, Charles, I undid a button on my shirt. The firm's going through a rough patch, but I promise, as soon as I get things straightened out, I'll get you on the books. You realize I can't just announce that you're my daughter. I have to check everything, prepare my family. It's too sudden for you to show up. I have a grown-up daughter. You don't believe me?" "Not that I don't believe you," the man replied evasively. "I'm used to trusting confirmed facts, not words. I'm sorry, I don't feel well. Let's talk later." He dialed the secretary. "Lucy, call me a car. I'm going home. Oh, by the way," Mary handed over a folder. "Brian wanted me to give this to you." Charles took a quick glance at the papers in the car and was horrified. What a scoundrel! He shouted indignantly as he entered the house. Miranda rushed toward him. "Charles, what's wrong? Your face is gone. Who are you talking about? We're ruined," the man said confusedly as he leafed through the documents. He poured cognac into his glass and drank a good half of it. "Explain what's going on. Who is the scoundrel?" "It's our son-in-law, the scoundrel, the sneaky bastard. He's got me wrapped around his finger. He's taken everything I've built up over the years." "Wait, Charles, we need to talk to Brian. I'm sure he'll have something to say." It's not that simple. Dejected, the man disappeared behind the office door. Charles, don't drink. Looking in on him, his wife urged him on. Alcohol will kill you. It's not alcohol, it's our son-in-law who'll kill me. Don't disturb me, I want to be alone. The news was fatal for Charles. His poor heart couldn't bear the betrayal of the man he trusted. From the hospital, a tired Lauren returned to an empty house. Brian. She called for her husband, looked around the rooms, but he wasn't home. How I hoped you would support me. The woman went into the bedroom and without undressing, laid down in bed, tears staining her eyes. Alone, I'm all alone. An uneasy sleep carried her into its embrace. She dreamed of her smiling mother. She stretched her arms to her, inviting her into her embrace. Behind her back loomed her father. Lauren couldn't make out his face. It was blurry, indistinct. She ran toward her parents, and they were moving away. She fell to the ground, panting, exhausted, and woke up in a cold sweat. Brian. The woman turned her head toward her husband's pillow, but the bed at his side remained unmade. Where are you? Is it Mary's? She got up, washed her face, changed her clothes, had a quick breakfast, got in the car, and drove back to the hospital. The phone was silent, though Lauren waited expectantly for her husband to call. Mommy, I miss you so much. Lauren sat by her mother's bedside, held her thin, lifeless fingers and cried. She reached out and stroked her sickly cheek. Miranda was asleep. I don't understand how Brian could do this to us. What have I done wrong to him? He ruined us. He tricked Dad into signing the papers, and now everything we had belongs to him. I'm all alone, with no husband, no dad, and no money. Don't you leave me. The woman sobbed. My whole life is going down the drain, but I promise. Through tears, said Lauren, I'll fight. I'll find a good lawyer. He will definitely bring Brian to the surface. There was some kind of fraud involved. My dad couldn't have voluntarily given him the firm and left me with nothing. I'm sure the truth is on our side, but you better come back to me soon. She leaned over and kissed her mother's hand. Stop crying. Softly ordered the doctor, entering the room. Immediately stop this dampness breeding. Cry and go home. Your mother should not worry. I'm sorry, doctor. Wiping her tears, said Lauren. What's going to happen to her? Will she get better? Is there any hope? The prognosis is good. The man reassured her. Speech will be restored in time, sensitivity in her leg and arm too. I think after rehabilitation she'll be able to move around on her own, and the rest will be up to her. Time will tell. Go home. After a moment's silence, the doctor said, She'll sleep till morning, and you should get some rest. You don't look very well, to say the least. Yeah, I haven't been sleeping well. I've had a lot on my mind all at once. Well, you're young. God only sends us the trials we can bear. You'll see everything will work out. Try to calm down, let the situation go. Nothing can be changed. You have to learn to live with it. Your mother needs you healthy and strong. You're right, of course, thank you. Lauren walked out of the hospital building, breathed a full breath. The troubling thoughts wouldn't let go. The woman was on the mend. Where? Looking around for a car, she asked herself. I don't understand. I left it here. Was it stolen? Ah, excuse me. She turned to the security guard. My car is missing. What kind of car? Lauren gave the make, color, and license plate number. So it was towed about a half hour ago. By who? Some guy showed me the papers and took it away. Said he lost his keys. That's weird. The woman looked at them puzzled. Then call me a cab, please. Her red foreign car was parked in front of the house. What kind of joke is this? Lauren was indignant, getting out of the cab. Have you lost your conscience? Lauren put the key in the keyhole and couldn't open the lock. Hey, Brian, open up. She banged on the door and pressed the bell button. What do you want? The man reluctantly opened the door. You changed the locks while I was at my mom's, but why? Why are you yelling? You've got the whole street in an uproar. Brian stood in the doorway, not letting Lauren through. You're gonna keep me out of the door for a long time, let me through. She tried to push him out of the way. It's my house, that's where my stuff is. Not anymore. Mockingly, the man said, This is my house, and you're out of here. He set the suitcase on the porch. Take your things and go. You have no right to kick me out of here. This house was built for us by my father, and I am his heir. I'd rather you left. You're wrong. Everything that once belonged to you is now mine, and the car too. The keys. He held out his palm demandingly. Lauren put in a bunch of keys. I gave you the car, but it's registered to me, so forget about it. It's okay. You can take public transportation like regular people. He laughed evilly. Why? Whispered the woman, not understanding, looking at her husband. Tears came to her eyes. What did I and my family do to you? Do you have a grudge against your father? There was something good in our life. Oh my God, what resentment are you talking about? The kind of resentment you get in kindergarten when you take away your favorite toy. You've trampled on our good name. It's time to get even for that. And our good life together, I remember it with a shudder. You chose the right moment to get even when I need your support. Lauren grinned sadly. I didn't expect you to be so mean. Don't feel sorry for me. My heart is deaf to your exhortations. Consider it compensation for the 5 years I had to live with you at Charles's mercy and for the humiliation my father endured. Without another word, the man slammed the door, leaving Lauren at a loss. Where am I supposed to go now? Not to a hotel. She dialed her aunt's number. Aunt Claire, can I stay with you for a while? Lauren? Her father's sister answered kindly. What's wrong? Brian swindled us out of our property, and I have no place to stay. Well, that's how it is. What about Mom? How's Mom doing? As long as the doctors are cautious, it's gonna be a long rehab. So, can I stay with you? Oh dear, the woman's in a hurry. I'm sorry, I can't take you in. I'm renovating. It's gonna be uncomfortable. Your mother will need special care. I don't want to take on such a responsibility. My health is failing me, I'm sorry. And the woman hung up. Lisa? Lauren dialed her cousin's number. Can I stay with you for a while? I'm sorry. She heard back, I can't take you in. I'm going away on a business trip. Can I keep an eye on the apartment while you're away? I promise not to interfere or bring guests. I just don't have a place to sleep. I've got enough problems of my own. I don't want to take on yours. Sorry, don't count on me. What's going on? Despondently thought the woman, dialing one by one the numbers of her relatives. Each one found a reason to refuse her. The whole world is against us. No one wants to help, and I don't even have a place to stay. I can't even go to a hotel. I don't have a penny in my pocket, and Brian has blocked my cards. Desperate, Lauren called a distant relative. Aunt Nancy, hello. Lauren, hello, darling. It's good to hear from you. Aunt Nancy, can I stay with you? It so happens that my mother and I are homeless. Mom's in the hospital, and there's no one else I can go to but you. What happened? Can I tell you when I see you? No need to talk. Just come over. Lauren called a cab, and in a few minutes she was at her aunt's house. Sit down. Let's have dinner together. The old woman was bustling in the kitchen. "Tell me, how's your mother? Has she recovered? What do the doctors say?" "Not yet," the young woman said tiredly. "I hope everything will be all right. At least my condition is stable now, but I don't know where to get the money for rehabilitation. Brian left us with nothing. The medicine is very expensive. What the hell is he doing? He blocked all my cards. That's what was in my wallet. She showed me some bills. He even took the car he gave me as a gift. What a scumbag, you crotchety bastard. I never liked him, the slippery type. If someone asked me for advice, I'd never marry you to him. He's got scoundrel written all over his forehead. I'll deal with him. I'll get over him. I'll get my head around it all at once. I've forgotten when I've had a good night's sleep. Thank you for taking me in." "Oh, I'm talking to you. Auntie's taken over. You're tired, I see. Come, the bed's ready. Lie down and rest. Tomorrow we'll think about how to live our lives. Remember, you're not alone." Lauren stretched out on the soft sofa with pleasure. The events of the day had taken away the last of her strength, and she fell asleep immediately, only touching her head on the pillow. She was awakened in the middle of the night by a phone call. "Hello." A woman spoke in a husky voice. "Lauren, your mother died half an hour ago." She heard an unfamiliar female voice. "Please accept our condolences." "How?" Lauren gasped. "I was in last night. The doctor said she had good prospects for recovery. She had a second stroke. After that, your mom didn't stand a chance." "Ah, excuse me." The girl on the other end of the line was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "There is no point in going now. We are waiting for you in the morning. We need to draw up the documents." Lauren listened to the short beeps for a long time, staring at the wall. "Lauren?" Aunt Nancy peeked through the door, squinting awake from the bright light. "Who was that? What's the matter?" "Mom?" "Yeah, Mom's dead." The woman barely said a word, fell back on her pillow and sobbed. "What a grief!" Auntie shook her head. She'd just buried her father, and then there were funerals again. "Trouble has come. Open the gates. I don't even have any money." Tearing her tear-stained face from the pillow, Lauren said, "To bury my mom. Don't worry about that. I'll talk to the relatives tomorrow. We won't leave you in trouble." "Aunt Nancy, thank you. You're the only one who responded, who didn't refuse to help, who took me in. I can't imagine what would have happened to me if it hadn't been for you." "Well, rest for now. We'll decide tomorrow what we're going to do." Grief-stricken, Lauren almost did not remember burying her mother. She fell into a severe depression. All day she lay in her room on the couch with her head covered with a blanket. Half dream, half reality, alternated days and nights, she lost count of them. It was her aunt who brought her out of this state. "Get up." She pestered her. "You can't lie there all the time. You have to eat. Just a little?" "I don't want anything." In a colorless voice, said Lauren, "I don't want anything. Get up. I've prepared something delicious. I won't let you die. Don't get your hopes up. Your parents would never forgive me if something happened to you." Lauren walked reluctantly to the kitchen, pushing a couple spoonfuls of some food into herself, unable to taste it. Sluggish, her hair disheveled, her gaze blank, she wrapped herself in a blanket, trying to get rid of her relatives' annoying attention and be alone. "I know it's hard for you right now." One day the woman spoke to her. "But you must realize that you can't stay with me forever. You have to learn to support yourself. It's time to look for a job, rent a place to live. You are not small. You should understand. You've lived a little, and it's time to know your honor. Guests are guests, but you have to get on with your life." "Yes, of course, you're right." Lauren was embarrassed by her aunt's words. "I realize I've overstayed my welcome. I'm ashamed to admit it, but I've never worked, and I don't know how to do anything but housework. Have you had any education other than school? No. The young woman blushed. I thought I didn't need it. First my father and then my husband provided for me, and I had no idea that I would ever be left without money and have to earn it myself. But in the store you can cope with the duties of a saleswoman. Do you have taste? Do you know what's trendy in clothes? Yes, I can do that. But who'd hire me without experience? I'll help you. Aunt Nancy promised. I have a friend who needs a consultant in an expensive store. She is strong in accounting, organizing, providing it is her specialty. But in fashion, she knows nothing, only you. She looked at her niece critically. You need to clean yourself up and learn to smile again. Without that, the trade will not go. I will try. The young woman was happy. I won't let you down. 2 days later, Lauren already stood behind the counter of a fashion boutique and perfectly coped with the role of clothing stylist. Her heart still ached, but not as much. Outwardly, she tried to hold herself together, only occasionally catching sympathetic glances her employer. Apparently, her aunt had told her of the grief that had befallen their family. Lauren, Aunt Nancy declared one evening when the woman had returned from work and was about to retire to her room. No offense to me, but you're going to have to look for an apartment. You can't stay with me all the time. I helped you with your job and gave you a place to stay for a while. Why do you want to live with an old woman? You want me to move out? Yes, there was a guilty look in the old woman's eyes. My relatives already look at me askew. I don't care what they think, but I'm used to living alone. It's time for you to get on with your life. After a week, Lauren moved into a rented apartment. It was quiet. It was hard to get used to independence, but the woman realized that she had no one to rely on. She had to rely only on herself. Mary rejoiced. At last, she said joyfully to Brian, "We've done it. We've destroyed them. How cleverly you've calculated everything. I couldn't have done it without your help." Brian sat in the chair that Charles had recently occupied and gave orders to his subordinates. In 6 months, I will get my share and enjoy my life. The girl sat on the table in front of her lover and cheerfully chattered her legs. I always knew that my place was in high society, not in a run-down village. At least something good my mother did for me. A wealthy father is cool. But you'll have to take a DNA test first. No one will take your word for it that you're Charles' daughter. Yeah, you're right. Mary got serious. I have to submit all the papers to the notary beforehand, and I don't think there will be any problems with the division of property. Sis, by all accounts, will not quarrel with me, and if she does, I'll break her teeth. We've done everything. Brian smiled enigmatically, looking at his mistress. To keep the firm in our hands. Why don't you start? Hurried Mary to the notary. Everything has been known for a long time. 6 months passed, and all the invitees gathered to hear Charles's will. Lauren is waiting. He calmly looked at his watch. The time had not yet expired. Maybe she won't come. Are they afraid to meet relatives? What kind of relatives are we now? My father's gone, my mother's gone. We can't start until all interested parties are present. Well, everyone who wanted to come is here. The notary finally announced, "I can now read the will." He paused for a moment. Unfortunately, Charles's business has not been going well lately, so all of his property is described for debts and goes to pay them. And the firm? Mary glared angrily with her eyes, barely containing her emotions. And the firm stays with the rightful owner. The notary pointed at Brian. He grinned and looked around the room victoriously. "What a scoundrel," someone said. "How could Charles leave his own daughter without a penny?" Added another. "Is it so?" Mary asked, looking indignantly at the notary. Nothing to inherit? And you wanted to gouge your relatives for free? Someone remarked, and everyone laughed. Take a good look. The girl asked the notary. Maybe there's some money left. Everything that was there has passed into the hands of the rightful owner. He's in front of you. Why didn't Lauren come? One of the relatives asked again. She was right. She probably knew how her father was doing, so why upset herself unnecessarily? The visitors slowly began to disperse, discussing the Parker family. Brian, Mary called out to the man, "What the hell are you doing? Why am I just now finding out that the inheritance all went under the hammer? Did you know?" "Oh, darling." He walked to the car without stopping. Everyone got what they could. "Get in." He turned to her. "I'll drop you at the apartment." "The apartment?" The girl freaked out. "No, we're going to your place now. I want to know how the firm ended up in your hands." All the way there, Mary was resentfully silent. "You're going to screw me over?" Mary threw her purse irritably on the sofa in the living room and sank down on it. "I made this gamble with you, just for the inheritance, and now it turns out that my dear daddy is bankrupt. The house has been repossessed, and the firm is in your name, Clever. Why are you yelling? You're giving me a headache. You bastard, convinced that we're together, that we'll divide the property between us, and now it turns out that I'm a fool, and you're in the chocolate. Didn't you just swear to me that you'd love me forever?" She suddenly stopped her fiery speech and squinted at Brian. "Wait a minute. So you knew everything, you had it all figured out, and you just needed me as a diversion. You bastard. You used me as a diversion." The girl came at him with her fists. "Shut up." Brian cut her off roughly. "Yes, I admit I used you, but didn't we both avenge our parents? The money, the firm, it's just a nice bonus. Then give me my cut. I helped you. You said yourself you couldn't have done it without me. I'm sorry, it's not my intention to share with anyone. But the firm is making a good profit, so give me a percentage. I'll take 50%. Even though you're not legally entitled to it at all. I know how you got it. Alas, you'll get nothing here either. I've already found a buyer for it. As soon as I finalize the deal, I'm leaving the country. I want to start a new life with a clean slate and not see anyone from the past. And me, I thought we were together. I'm sorry, we're going our separate ways now. We had a good time together, but there's no place for you in my new life." "Oh, you bastard." Mary lost her temper and lashed out at Brian. "I slept with you. I distracted my father while you slipped him the right papers, and now I'm being scrapped. I should have known that a man who betrayed me once would betray me next time. You treated me like your wife, you despicable traitor. For an illiterate orphan, you're too smart, but that won't help you." The man grabbed Mary and threw her on his shoulder, grabbing her purse. "I almost got emotional and threw you a consolation prize in the form of a tidy sum, but now you'll get nothing." He shoved the woman out the gate of the house and quickly closed it. "Bastard." Magusa drummed on the door, then started kicking it. "You're a thief, damn you. If you don't move away from the door, I'll call the police." "Call them? Then I'll tell everyone how you got my father's money. I'm sure some people would be happy to send you to jail. You'll never make it. Unless you want to come after me. Need I remind you who gave Charles a heart attack? And your spectacular appearance at his funeral was probably memorable. Of course, everyone will remember it ended in Miranda's death. You wouldn't dare. No one would believe you. I assure you, they will believe me. You don't know what miracles are done for money, but how would you, a beggar? Damn you, that money won't bring you happiness anyway. We'll see about that. You say that because you have nothing. Go away. I don't want to see you again. You think you can handle me? Furious, Mary threw her fist in the direction of the house. Don't think you can get rid of me that easily. I'm leaving, but I'll be back, and then you scoundrel, won't be happy. She muttered to herself, You've got the wrong girl. I'll get my revenge. Don't expect me to leave easily with the money. She didn't call or seek Brian for several days. He didn't say a word either. You think you've managed to fool around. You're wrong. She simmered, sitting alone at home. I'll do anything to get my money back, but I won't go to any trouble. I'll get you on the sly. Living in an orphanage taught me a lot of things, including the ability to be patient for a while. She waited a few days, then decided to act. Brian, she murmured softly into the receiver to her lover. I missed you and I thought, why should we fight? I suggest we bury the hatchet. I'm sorry. Why don't we get together? That's the right thing to do. Satisfied, Brian gladly accepted the truce. Come, I have a surprise for you. I saw your sister. Mockingly he announced when Mary appeared in the house. In a fashion boutique. The man had just gotten out of the shower, his damp hair glistening, strong tanned arms, gently embraced his guest. Wow! The girl raised her eyebrows in surprise, snuggling up to him. Money for expensive clothes. Did she find a rich sponsor? Don't be ridiculous. Who would be interested in her? Brian grinned contemptuously. She works there. Works? It's funny to see a former rich girl behind the counter. Mary foxed around Brian, trying to put him off guard. I don't care about her, though. Honey, she looked at the man affectionately. I didn't come here to talk. The girl unambiguously ran her hand over his bare chest. I remembered our stormy nights every day. I never thought I'd get to hold my sweet girl. Brian picked her up in his arms and carried her into the bedroom. How did I miss you? Aren't you interested in how things are going with the firm? He asked her half an hour later, lying in bed with her after a lot of lovemaking. I do not want to quarrel with you again. You want to tell me yourself. I only wonder what will happen to the work, how the new owner will dispose of the staff. In 2 days, I have a sale. The buyer offered a good price and promised not to fire anyone then. He kissed Mary impulsively. I'm getting on a plane, and in a few hours I'll be far away from here. Can you imagine how nice it is to live large and not deny yourself anything? What I love, he laughed, noticing the girl's frown. Don't be angry. In this life, everyone is for himself. I managed to pull off a profitable business, and you will succeed. You are still so young. I'm not angry, discreetly replied Seductress. What made you think that? Did you really think that I would want to marry you? I just got rid of my wife, and you offer me a new collar to hang around my neck. Please save me the trouble of making excuses. Let's put our quarrels behind us. Today I want to enjoy you, and tomorrow we do not know what awaits us tomorrow. At last, exulted the man, opening a bottle of champagne at dinner. Tomorrow morning I have a meeting with the seller. We sign the papers, and I am rich. He poured the wine into glasses. Mary, let's drink to a successful transaction. Of course, we shouldn't celebrate until all the signatures are in, but the contract's already drawn up. It's just a matter of picking up my money tomorrow. I'm happy for you. The girl was smiling, but her own hatred was rising in her heart. And my wife won't get anything. She's not my wife. Brian frowned. Heartless, she's been with you for 5 years. Doesn't she deserve some compensation? Have you been divorced yet? That's the sticking point. Brian took a sip. Until I have a stamp in my passport, I can't leave. You see, I can't do without the proverbial 3 months to think about it, so I'll have to wait a little longer. He jumped up, glass in hand, made a circle around the living room and sat down at the table again. But I'm patient. If I can live 5 years with a woman I don't love, so a few days don't solve anything. But after that freedom is worth waiting for. They spent half the night making love again. In the morning, Mary quietly crawled out from under the blanket. "Sleep, my sweet." She smiled wickedly, looking at the sleeping man, fire burning in her eyes. "I won't let you get your hands on that money. It's all the same, in my opinion," whispered the girl and resolutely left the room. "Let's see what you'll sing when I fixed your car a little." She tiptoed into the garage, looking around. "That's it." Carefully cutting the brake hose, Mary said, "I hope you don't find out right away that the car has no brakes." She gave a satisfied laugh. "I warned you not to make me angry, and you didn't listen? I'll feel sorry for you." Just as quietly, she went back to bed and fell peacefully asleep, gently pressed against the man's warm side. "Mary," in the morning Brian woke the girl with an affectionate kiss. "I'm going to go prepare a festive dinner. If you're a good girl, I'll share the money with you." He was on his way to the door when Mary called out to him, "Darling, give me a kiss goodbye." Well, it's too soon to say goodbye. Unsuspecting, the man returned and kissed her, smiling cheerfully. "Before you can miss me, I'll be back. There are many more hot nights ahead of us. My departure has been postponed indefinitely. Who knows, who knows?" Mary muttered under her breath, smiling nastily back at him. Brian whistled merrily as he drove the car, everything in his life working out perfectly. What the hell? Suddenly he was worried. The man pressed the brake pedal on a curve, but it slammed into the floor. The brakes? What's wrong with the brakes? And he gripped the steering wheel of the car in terror, trying to steady it on the tight corner, but it wouldn't obey. In the last seconds of his life, Brian saw a huge truck, right under the wheels, which flew into his car, and frozen in horror eyes of the driver, a multi-ton machine. "It's not my fault," repeated in a trembling voice the driver of the van, jumping out of the cab. "You saw, he himself carried on the oncoming." He threw only to one driver, of those who stopped and ran to help, then to another. "You saw that, didn't you?" "It wasn't my fault," he cried, clutched his head. "Man, don't worry, I'm ready to be a witness." A hand rested on his shaking shoulders. "I called the police, they're coming, and I'll tell you what I saw. You sit down, come to your senses." Someone handed the unhappy driver a bottle of water and sat him down on the curb. "Looks like something happened to the man's brakes, huh?" somebody noticed. A few minutes later, the police arrived, an ambulance. Medics rushed to the driver of the truck. "It's not my fault he hit me." The man kept repeating he was shaking. He could hardly understand what was going on around him. "Now I'll give you a sedative," the doctor promised. "There's no visible damage, but you should still come with us. Nobody's going anywhere." The coroner's order. "Until we get everyone on the ground." The rescuers took Brian's breathless, blood-soaked body out of the car and laid it on the ground, covering it with a sheet. Meanwhile, Mary was purring to herself as she chopped salad and soft music was blasting from the TV. We're on the suburban highway. Suddenly a woman heard. Just 40 minutes ago, there was a fatal accident here. A passenger car crashed into a truck. The driver of the foreign car died on the spot. The cause of the accident will be investigated, but eyewitnesses are reporting that the passenger car's brakes failed, sending it into the oncoming lane. "What, Brian?" the girl said mockingly, looking at the TV screen. "You don't need the money anymore, and all you had to do was to share it with me, and everyone would be alive, and some would be happy. You can't be so greedy." The girl immediately opened a bottle of wine and poured it into a glass. "Well, may the earth rest in peace, Brian." She walked over to Brian's picture. "Here's to you." Mary raised the glass, pretended to cry, and drained it at once. And no one can guess that I set it all up. Mary put the empty glass on the table and spun around the living room, sprinted, and flopped down on the bed. "Now I'll make that fool Lauren sell the firm and split the proceeds in half. We'll split them equally. And if she resists, I'll find a way to scare her." Confident in her impunity, Mary, as if nothing had happened, returned to the apartment. She calmly went to work, did not enter into conversations, while in the office of the company discussed the accident that happened to the young master. A couple days later, the doorbell rang at Mary's apartment. Who did that bring? She grumbled unhappily. I wasn't expecting anyone. Wrapping myself in my robe, I peered through the peephole. "Open up, police!" She heard it and flinched. I didn't call the police. The girl answered confidently, and her heart started to beat fearfully. "Open the door. We have a couple of questions for you." "What do you want?" she asked rudely, clicking the lock. "You're being held on suspicion of premeditated murder. Are you out of your mind?" Mary was outraged. "Who do you think I killed?" "Your lover." "Why would I kill him?" "We were having a good time." "That remains to be seen, but now get dressed and come with us." "I'm not going anywhere." The girl resolutely sat down on the sofa in the living room. "I know my rights. Show me the warrant." "No." "Then goodbye." "Leave my apartment. It's private property. We'll be forced to handcuff you." The young lieutenant said nonchalantly, "In the meantime, we just ask you to come with us until the circumstances of the case are clarified. We have the right to detain you for 48 hours on suspicion of a crime. And you're the first suspect in Brian's murder. The only person who stands to gain from his death is his wife, who's been ripped off. I think she'd be happy to take him out. Are you gonna hold her too? They haven't lived together for a long time, but you're a frequent visitor to the house, as far as we know, and there's a motive." "I have no motive to kill Brian." "How do you think I killed him?" "Are you going to search my place?" "Please search, but you won't find anything." She gave the cops a mocking look. "We know you don't have the murder weapon in your apartment." "Then how did I kill him?" "You damaged the brake hose." "You can't prove it," shouted Mary, and a chill ran down her spine. "I don't even know where it is." "We don't have to prove anything. There's a videotape of the cameras where you can clearly see how you cut the hose with a knife, and you do it very confidently." "I guess your lover forgot to tell you he'd set up video surveillance." "Are you taking on a hustler?" The girl said angrily. "You have nothing on me." "And you come with us to the office. There we will show you everything. Get dressed," ordered the man. Mary was taken out of the house and put into the car. "Explain why you did it?" asked the investigator when the girl was taken to his office and shown the surveillance tape. "I didn't want to." Mary sobbed. "It was his own fault. He decided to screw me over. He robbed his wife." "Write that down." "Robbed his wife, gave his father-in-law a heart attack, misled me. I believed him that he'd marry me when he divorced his wife, but he didn't even think about it. He was going abroad. I admit I did what he asked, but I had no idea where it would lead. And Brian's wife, for all we know, is your half-sister?" "Yes, I wanted the firm back in the family. He'd swindled me out of it. So you wanted to punish Brian for cheating. That's Robin Hood in a skirt. But the firm claims that you and your lover deliberately ruined Parker, kicked out Lauren, Charles' daughter. Brian made me do it," justified the girl. "He promised me the Golden Mountains, but he did not keep his promises. It's convenient to blame everything on a dead man. The policeman was silent. You'll still have to answer for the murder. The investigation has no doubts about your guilt. The evidence is ironclad. Sergeant, he shouted, and the duty officer appeared at once. You'll see the detainee. No, Mary cried out in fright. I don't want to go to prison. You can't just lock me up like that. Alas, that is exactly what we have the right to do. You will be kept in custody while the investigation is in progress. It's not fair. I'm so young. She shrieked, breaking out of the man's arms. And I'll come out an old woman. The investigator nodded to the sergeant, who took the stubborn girl into the cell. Lauren began to recover a little after the sad events. She liked her job. Even the rented apartment was no longer annoying, but she missed her home. Couldn't you get the rights to the house back? Her partner wondered. The women became friends and supported each other. To get it back, you have to pay your debts, and I don't have that kind of money. Answered Lauren. What if I sue my husband? Isn't there any proof that he took everything by fraud? She shook her head in doubt sadly. Lauren, one day heard the woman on the phone, an unfamiliar male voice.
Hello, this is the Stories Beside channel. I release videos every day for you. Subscribe and click the bell.
Kevin, darling, can you hear me? Christina said embarrassedly into the phone to her husband. Do you have a minute? At the other end of the phone, you could hear an agonized sigh. Christina, what is it? Can you talk normally? I'm very busy right now. The wife involuntarily bit her lip with resentment. She did not understand why she could deserve such a neglectful attitude from her beloved Kevin. It's nothing much. Really, she said carefully, hoping her husband wouldn't get angry. I just wanted to tell you that I missed you so much. I love you. Her husband answered something inaudible, but Christina did not ask again, for fear of causing her husband even more irritation. You better tell me, how do you feel? Asked suddenly with genuine concern in his voice Kevin. What do the doctors say? Is the baby healthy? Christina's face instantly lit up with a joyful smile. So he did care about her and their child, and the rest must have been just her imagination. The doctor had said it could happen to pregnant women from an overabundance of hormones. It's common, right up until the last trimester. Yeah, I'm fine. The mommy-to-be replied happily. The doctors say that me and the baby, we are both healthy. Everything is going great. I will give birth in about a week. Well, that's the important thing. The most important thing is that you, my son, are fine. You don't have to worry about the rest. Calmly answered the husband, and in his voice, Christina caught some new satisfied notes. It was as if Kevin had convinced himself of something that his young wife was not supposed to know. Kevin? Christina asked again. What now? Honey, hurry up. You're going to make me late for the stockholders' meeting. You know what kind of piranhas are on the board. I was wondering how Clara is doing. She complained to me the other day that her blood pressure's up again. The doctor prescribed her pills, but I'm not sure she's taking them. Could you make sure she doesn't forget them while I'm away? Clara was the mother of her husband, Kevin, and consequently, Christina's own mother-in-law. Despite the fact that the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law was extremely strained, Christina always tried to help in any way she could. The young woman was especially worried about the health of her mother-in-law. She always felt bad as soon as she and Kevin began to discuss joint plans for the future, which did not involve Clara. Of course, Christina guessed that the cause of frequent indispositions of her mother-in-law is banal jealousy. But out of respect for the honorable age of her mother-in-law and her sincere love for Kevin, the girl tried not to pay attention to the constant reproaches and nags to her on the part of Clara. "Don't worry, Christina. Everything is fine with Mom." Smiling at his wife in the phone, Kevin replied, "You know how impressionable she is." Again, probably, she thought of something too much. That's why her blood pressure went up. "Yeah, I guess so." She hesitantly stretched out her spouse, but reminded him again, "And still control the medication, okay? It's a hypertensive crisis. It's no joke. Okay, Christina, I'm really in a hurry right now. Why don't I call you again tonight, and we'll talk? I can't talk anymore." Kisses. After that, Christina's husband abruptly disconnected. The pregnant woman sighed and quietly went to her bed. She needed to rest as much as possible. That's what the doctor said. The baby was developing normally, but there were still small risks of complications. Therefore, the doctor monitored the condition of the young woman in labor, preferring to reinsure herself once again, so as not to jeopardize the life of mother and child. "Something, Christina. Your husband is not very happy about the upcoming addition to the family, right?" Miranda asked her mockingly. A young girl pregnant with triplets. Miranda was from the village and had a very rough temper for some reason. Sometimes it seemed to Christina that her roommate was basically unpleasant when others were doing well in life. Miranda herself would never meet anyone after discharge. Her boyfriend dumped her as soon as he found out she was pregnant, so the girl prepared to raise her children alone. Christina felt sorry for her, though she was sometimes amazed at the poor girl's tactlessness. But Christina understood that such behavior for Miranda, most likely a defense mechanism that helped her to accept the fact that she now somehow will have to raise 3 children at once and without any support. "No, Miranda, why not?" Question for question, Christina answered her. "Kevin loves me very much, and he was just asking about my health." Yeah, I heard." The neighbor rudely interrupted her. "And he was in a hurry to get somewhere. I guess that's no way to talk to your favorite wife." "What are you talking about?" Christina didn't understand her. "I mean that he was trying to get rid of you on the phone, as if he was so fed up with you." A satisfied smile flashed across Miranda's face. She had managed to awaken some doubts in Christina. I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't at work right now, but with some girl in a hotel room somewhere. Champagne, roses, and all the classics, just the way men like it. "Miranda, please stop saying such nasty things." The neighbor shouted at her. "But why do you take such pleasure in spoiling other people's moods? Why should they all walk around smiling? And I alone should weep that I and my boys will not have a father. But chickens like you, everything is always good. And a handsome husband, a businessman, and a huge house, and even mother-in-law does not spoil their lives. And the main thing is, why is it so that some people get everything and others get a hole from a bagel? I may also dream of a normal husband. And now I have to go back to the village with 3 children. God, if I had only known then that everything would turn out this way, I would have made an abortion right away and would not have dragged it out until the last minute, hoping that this red-haired guy would come to his senses and come back to me." Miranda's face twisted and tears streamed down her face. A second later, there were first thin sobs and then full-blown sobs. "Miranda, honey, why are you doing this to yourself?" Christina clung to her, trying to hug the unhappy girl. "I'm sure you have some understanding people in your village. Maybe they will help you as neighbors, and then suddenly, your boyfriend as his children will see, so immediately, and return to you. Where else will he find such happiness?" Miranda picked up Christina with one hand and grabbed her stomach with the other. "Ouch!" Suddenly the girl cried out. "What? What is it?" Worried Christina. Ouch! Miranda cried out again, but this time much louder. Christina, call the doctor quickly. It seems to have started. Christina, without a moment's hesitation, ran out into the corridor and informed the nurse what had happened. Miranda was taken away to deliver the baby the same day. A couple of hours later, she returned to the room as a completely different person. Not for nothing they say that motherhood can dramatically change a woman's character. There was no trace of the former prickly girl. Miranda was always cooing about something, telling Christina about her amazing triplets. And then, when they were brought in for feeding, she had a chance to see for herself how cute they really were. For a split second, Christina even envied Miranda with white envy. Despite the fact that Miranda had an uncertain and difficult future ahead of her, she looked like the happiest woman in the world. Christina also wanted to experience this feeling, but she realized that she had only a short time to wait before she would meet her own son, lying in her room at night. Christina stroked her belly and reflected on life. She was 30, and this was her first child, to whom she was going to give all the love that had lived in her heart since long ago. Every single day she thanked God for giving her such a wonderful husband like Kevin. They met only 3 years ago, and that meeting really changed the young woman's life. Christina then worked as a simple saleswoman in a bookstore and did not expect not only to get married, but even to enter into any serious long-term relationship. With Robert, her last boyfriend, the girl broke up only a month ago. He decided that he was worthy of much more than some cashier, so he preferred Christina to some girl. Christina was very upset then. She really liked Robert, and she did not rule out that they could get married. However, the young guy suddenly wanted fame and money. In spite of the fact that before that he worked as an ordinary cab driver and never complained about anything, the girl could not understand how this girl was able to charm her man. But in fact, Robert left her a very long and boring letter in which he said that she, Christina, was too down to earth for him, while his soul longed for something sublime and extraordinary. That day, Christina stood at her workplace and laid out stationery in the cashier's area, when suddenly she was approached by a tall, trim brunette in an expensive suit. "Girl, excuse me, and you will help me choose a book as a gift, something on art, but very well designed. I need it for my business partner." Looking up and down into those stunning dark blue eyes, Christina realized that she had never seen a man with such a rare appearance. He looked like he had stepped out of the pages of a fashion magazine. And if he was not standing in front of her now, she would not have believed that men with such spectacular appearance existed, but, among other things, she was pleasantly surprised by the politeness with which the customer addressed her. Usually people in the hall just yanked her in different directions, wanting to get a quicker building, and at the same time and pouring on the poor saleswoman the entire portion of their own bile accumulated during the day. Here, everything was quite different. Of course, what kind of book do you need? Painting or perhaps architecture? The beautiful stranger smiled charmingly and asked to show him all the most expensive books on painting that they had in the store. Finally, after half an hour, the man chose a Dutch painting album with a gold-plated cover. "It's beautiful." Christina praised the purchase. "I can see that you are a man of taste." "Thank you," calmly said the man, and again gave the girl one of his stunning smiles. "You are a wonderful professional in your business, so patiently helped me to choose all this. I hope my partner will be satisfied." The stranger paid, and Christina did not see him again. However, a week later he showed up again, and again asked the girl to pick up a good book for him. Only this time something from modern literature, something fashionable. "What are the older ladies reading today?" he asked. Christina said to herself, as she led him to a shelf of modern dramas. "Don't be surprised," he said softly. "It's not for me. It's for my mom. She asked me to bring her something new. And I, alas, am not in the trend, if I may say so, what intellectually savvy women read nowadays. The same as 100 years ago." Christina laughed. The key to the success of any women's novel is a charming protagonist and a gentle heroine. And then everything is built around the two of them. Out of the corner of her eye, Christina noticed how the customer looked at her a little more closely than usual. "Excuse me, but would you consider it impertinent if I asked you your name?" Christina was slightly confused and then nodded at her name tag. "I'm sorry, I didn't notice." Christina then, when the stranger said the girl's name, she thought the floor swayed under her feet. Her name had never sounded so beautiful. "My name is Kevin." He gave her a slight nod, then gently shook her fragile little hand. "Christina, what are you doing tonight? You know, it's been a long time since I've met a girl who has read so many books and knows almost all of them by title and cover color. I'm kidding, of course, but I really like you. How about we go out to dinner tonight?" "Oh," she hesitated. "It's so sudden. I don't even have anything to wear." "That's not a problem." Kevin spoke quickly. "If you want, we'll stop by the boutique right after work and get you a cocktail dress." "What time do you get off?" No. No way." The girl was embarrassed and began to wrap her flaming face with her palms. She was becoming unbearably ashamed at the mere thought of the fact that this amazing man offered her to buy an evening dress, which in addition, and probably cost a lot of money. "I don't think you can find a dress in a boutique for a few thousand." "Excuse me." Kevin was embarrassed in turn. "I'm probably rushing things, and you're not used to this. It's just that the art book we picked out together, my partner was absolutely thrilled with it. So I wanted to thank you in a human way. You can't even imagine how you unknowingly helped me close one of the best deals for my company." That's how Christina found out that her sudden admirer was also a big businessman. In the end, they agreed that they would meet at 9 o'clock at her house, and from there they would go to the restaurant. Christina could not believe her luck, and in general that such a solid luxury man as Kevin invited her on a date, even out of a sense of pure gratitude. The girl has always been pleased to spend the evening in the company of good and well-mannered people. The first dinner together had gone splendidly. Kevin turned out to be a very interesting and attentive interlocutor, and in conversation he constantly emphasized how pleased he was to meet on his way such a charming, but at the same time intelligent girl. In the end, he charmed poor Christina so much that she was ready to give him her heart that very evening, even though she realized how foolish it was. The first date was followed by a second, and then a third and fourth. Kevin and Christina officially became a couple and did not hide their relationship. Love bloomed fresh roses in her soul, and the simple bookstore clerk could no longer hide her feelings for the businessman, especially since he made it clear to the girl that this is the kind of bride and dreamed of all his life. "Christina, I promise you, if you become my wife, you will never have to work in the store again," Kevin assured her. After a couple of months, he held in his hands a tiny velvet box, inside of which lay a gold ring with a magnificent diamond. "I want you to add to my home library," he told her, smiling, "so that you can continue the work of my parents and bring something new and beautiful into our home and my life. I firmly believe that you will be the only woman in this world who could do something like that. Tell me, Christina, will you marry me?" Christina felt tears running down her cheeks. It seemed that she had gone from real life to a fairy tale. Is it possible? But what would happen if she woke up now and it was all just a magical dream? God, I can't believe it's real." Crying with happiness, said Christina. "Oh my God, of course it is." Yes, the man hugged her, and in that moment they felt like the happiest people in the world. Kevin literally carried his bride in his arms, constantly making her expensive gifts in the form of jewelry, exquisite clothes, and perfumes. And of course, the best books he could find. Soon the businessman announced to his mother that Christina officially moves into their mansion. However, Clara, becoming clearly insane, jealous of her only son to her future daughter-in-law, was adamantly opposed to both the move itself and the wedding in general. "Son, have you decided to reduce me to the grave?" asked an elegantly dressed woman in her 60s. "What, Christina? What moving? What wedding, after all? Do you think that if father is no longer alive, you can disgrace our family forever? Mom, you always exaggerate everything." Kevin replied with a slight smile. "You've seen my fiancée. She's the purest, kindest girl I've ever met in my life. Don't you want your son to be happy? Have you decided that you will be happy with her?" Question for question, the mother answered, hungrily squinting her ice blue eyes. "With this orphan, practically a beggar without 5 minutes. What happened to the parents? Would you remind me?" "Mom, I'm begging you." Her son tried to calm her down, but there was no stopping her. "If I'm not mistaken, they died in a fire when your Christina was 9. "Yeah, so what?" Kevin said defiantly. "So Kevin, that girl has had a huge psychological trauma in her head since she was a child." The woman expressively twisted her finger at her temple, alluding to her son's fiancée. Indeed, one could understand the feelings of a woman who now has to share her son with his young wife. But so, alas, it happens sooner or later in all families. The only thing that comforted the girl was that Kevin, for all the loyalty of his mother's character, always remained on the side of his future wife. Even when Clara expressed a desire to personally help Christina with the choice of wedding dress, the groom decided that it was a bad idea and did not let his mother spoil the holiday. It was necessary to see how green then the future mother-in-law of the girl. It seemed that she hated Christina with all her gut, so much that she was ready to sizzle her with just one look. The wedding was held in one of the most expensive restaurants in the country. Since Christina herself had almost no friends and family, most of the guests were high-ranking personalities from the business circles of her young husband. Unfortunately, the only close person of the girl's Aunt Betty, who brought up her niece after the tragic death of her parents, died shortly before Christina met her husband. Therefore, Christina simply had no one to invite to the wedding, unless you counted a few co-workers at the bookstore. Christina kept her dignity and tried her best to prove to herself and her husband that she too could be an elegant young lady of society. Kevin appreciated the girl's behavior and later praised her for not giving his mother an excuse to poke her nose into their business with Christina. The girl was immensely proud of herself that night. Afterwards, she made several attempts to reconcile with Clara, but everything was in vain. No matter how much the girl tried to please the future mother-in-law, it was simply impossible. Time and again, the woman reproached Christina that she is not educated enough, poorly aware of the rules of etiquette, and in general, absolutely not suitable for her son. Obviously, before her mother-in-law already had in mind for Kevin the so-called favorable party. Christina, with her appearance, just confused the mother of the businessman all plans. The first year of married life became for Christina the happiest. Kevin's business flourished, but he found enough time for his young wife, although he felt a lot of pressure from her mother. Clara strenuously pretended that Christina as a person and daughter-in-law for her simply does not exist. However, Christina was not against and look in her eyes invisible, just so as not to hear once again in his address offensive, but most importantly completely unfounded accusations and reproaches. When at the end of the first year of marriage, she and Kevin could not have children, Slaka frankly rejoiced. "Well, son, the whole truth about your Christina has come out. She's not gonna give you kids, you can count on it. I wouldn't be surprised if it turns out that she had an abortion when she was young. So she can't have children, and she didn't tell you about it, just to marry you as soon as possible. Why are you talking about me like that? Christina couldn't stand it. It happens often and in many couples. The first year is not an indicator of whether your son and I will have children or not. Maybe we should just wait a year. I'm willing to go to counseling, but I'm sure I don't have any health problems." My mother-in-law just snorted contemptuously. "What kind of guarantees can be here? That you in the city counseling center do not have girlfriends? Or what, you Banal there do not buy a certificate? Do you think I'm stupid? No, honey, you're not fooling me. I knew right away what you were." Clara squinted at me evilly. "My boy couldn't possibly be interested in a gray moth like you, unless you did something on purpose to do so. But mark my words, if you put something on my Kevin, I'll bury you in the damp earth myself. Do you understand me?" Kevin, who was present, came close to his mother and said seriously, "Mom, until when are you going to say all this nonsense? What kind of nonsense are you talking? You're a cultured woman after all, and our business with Christina, let alone having children, doesn't concern you at all. I'll argue with you on that one, son." His mother answered him in the same tone. "I am very much concerned with the affairs of your offspring, because who, you tell me, is going to run the company when you're gone? I think I'm well enough to think about such things." Kevin responded with wicked irony in his voice. "Son, we're living in dangerous times." The mother-in-law's lips quivered. "It's unclear what's going on everywhere. Don't you want to be sure that your own son or daughter will be the head of the house after you leave? And I see you're going to bury me already?" Kevin snapped at her, but Christina, whose heart at that moment was breaking with pain for the people close to her, could not stand it and exclaimed, "Clara, Kevin, that's enough. Please do not quarrel because of me." Tears glistened in the eyes of the unhappy daughter-in-law for the second time this evening. "Clara, if you insist, I can bring you a certificate from the hospital that I'm fine. You will choose the clinic where I will be examined to avoid the possibility of a substitute diagnosis on my part. Don't even think about it, Christina." Kevin roared. "She has no right to condemn herself to such an utterly despicable and humiliating ordeal. What is this, the Middle Ages? You and I will figure out when to have children on our own, without the spectacle of this." At that moment, Kevin's mother had a heart attack. "Oh, I don't feel so good, son." "Mom, stop clowning around." Kevin calmly responded, "Don't think I'll fall for your tricks again." "Wait, Kevin, what if she's really sick?" Christina got worried and rushed to her mother-in-law. "Clara, where do you have a heartache?" The mother-in-law hesitantly touched first the chest area and then the head. "Tonometer? Christina? Please hurry up. I think my blood pressure has spiked again." The daughter-in-law rushed into the living room to get the device, and when she returned, she heard only a scrap of conversation between mother and son, in which Clara strongly warned her son. "Keep in mind, son, if you don't have children in a year, blame yourself." The girl stood with the tonometer pressed to her chest and froze, unable to move. So Clara had tricked her again. But why? Why did she hate her so much and turn her own son against her so zealously? Was it only because Christina had the misfortune to be born into a very poor family? The thought of it was so disgusting to the girl that she quietly put the pressure gauges in place and silently went up to her room. And now, almost a year later, she was expecting her and Kevin's first child. Christina really wanted to name the boy Ethan in honor of his grandfather, but did not know whether Kevin himself would approve of such a choice. However, her husband during the pregnancy noticeably distanced from her, and the girl even began to worry about it. He was almost no interest in his wife, more often late at work. Christina herself timed and again caught the gloating glances of her mother-in-law. The future mother did not know what could be associated with such behavior of her husband, and therefore all the time was tormented by speculation, what she did wrong. After Miranda's roommate Christina gave birth, Kevin stopped calling his wife. With each new day, the anxiety in the soul of the woman only increased. After all, when she dialed her husband's number, he invariably dropped the call. What is this business? Christina said to herself, winding circles around the ward. She was about to give birth. She had not heard a word from her husband. Is that any way to treat a pregnant wife? Christina thought. Did Clara have a hand in their relationship? But she couldn't be crazy enough to risk the health of her own grandchild. What if something terrible happened to Kevin? God, I wish I'd thought of that before. It flashed through the girl's mind. She immediately called her mother-in-law. However, she was waiting for the same picture as in the case of calls to her spouse. No one answered the phone, or the line was immediately cut off. What the hell is this? Walked backward-forward the girl, when suddenly felt how much she had tightened inside her stomach. Here we go, Christina realized, and immediately called for a nurse. 4.5 hours later, Christina gave birth to a strong, healthy baby boy. Congratulations, said the satisfied midwife, handing her her son. 3,500. A real big boy. Have you thought of a name yet? Ethan. Christina responded instantly, no longer able to change anything. If Kevin didn't answer the phone, she would make the decision for both of them. Ethan, that's a nice name, soft, the nurse said, and then took the baby away from the woman for all the necessary procedures. Don't worry, Christina. We will bring you a boy for feeding. Only a little later. Has the husband been informed? Yes. Christina lied in a weak voice. He said he'd be here soon. He's just busy at work at the moment. The midwife and nurse looked at each other, but said nothing. A few hours later, little Ethan was brought to Christina, and she was able to admire her tiny son for the first time. How sweet you are. What a beautiful, wonderful, most favorite boy. Christina said, kissing her son on his forehead and hands. After feeding Ethan, the young mother immediately fell into a pleasant sleep. Rest properly. You will need it now. The nurse admonished her. You won't be able to sleep properly for at least 6 months. I don't care. Christina answered her as she fell asleep. The main thing is that Ethan is with me now. A week after the birth, no one came to pick her up. From excitement and anxiety, Christina almost lost her milk. However, the doctors advised her to calm down. Mom, maybe just something happened at home that now no one can meet her. Imagining the worst, Christina called a cab to the maternity hospital and went home. She and her husband and his mother lived out of town, so the cab driver demanded payment up front. He said there might not be enough gas, so it was better to fill up on the way. Christina obediently gave him the card. However, after a couple of seconds, the driver unhappily said, "Lady, are you trying to cheat me?" Christina hesitated. "I do not know what you mean." "My husband put enough money on my card to pay for the cab ride." The driver turned to her and shook her own card in the air. "Zero, girl, zero. There's no money on your card. Or is it blocked?" Christina, cradling a crying Ethan at that moment, only frowned. "Are you sure? Check it again, please. I distinctly remember there being enough funds in there." The cab driver shrugged silently and put the card to the reader again. The same unpleasant beeping sounded. "Alas," he said, "either pay or get out." Christina had no idea what was going on, but just in case, she rummaged through her purse and emptied out all the cash she could find, including change. There was only 60 cents in there, no more. "Is that enough to get me at least halfway there?" she asked the driver. He looked skeptically at the crumpled bills, but did not refuse. "I'll take you to the gas station, and then you can do it yourself." "All right," the young mother nodded. "Thanks for that." Having fulfilled his promise, the cab driver dropped her off at a small gas station, where Christina was able to wash and feed little Ethan and change his diaper. After that, the young woman threw her bag with baby things over her shoulder and dialed her husband's number and then her mother-in-law's number. A mechanical voice answered her that the subscriber was out of network, and here Christina was worried. With a quick step, the young mother covered the remaining distance to their cottage village. Although it was only a few miles, she felt terribly tired and exhausted. When she reached the gate of her house, the woman pressed the bell button several times before Clara's disgruntled face appeared on the intercom screen. "What do you want?" asked her mother-in-law in a tone as if she was standing in front of some homeless gypsy, not Clara's own daughter-in-law. "Thank God," Christina exhaled. "I was afraid something had happened to you." "It's me, Christina. Please open up. Kevin didn't come to pick me up for some reason, and he's not answering his phone. There must be something wrong with the connection. Look who I brought you." The girl smiled and showed the intercom screen her little grandson, but her mother-in-law's face reflected nothing but disgust. It was the last thing Christina had expected to see. "So, why are you showing me your freak? You'd think I'd be interested in what kind of puppy you gave birth to." The daughter-in-law was literally numb, unable to utter a single word. Then the intercom screen went off, and a couple minutes later the door of the mansion opened. From there, without hurrying, Clara came out and slowly approached the wicket, which was still closed. Christina pressed her heated forehead against the cold metal of the decorative lattice, unable to accept the reaction of her husband's mother. "Why did you come?" her mother-in-law asked her again. "It's not enough for you that you broke my son's heart, had a child from some lover. So now you want to throw him into our care?" "No, my dear, you will not succeed." The old woman wagged her index finger menacingly in front of Christina's face. "That's with whom you fattened your puppy. Go to him and go. And forget about our family forever. Kevin will mail you the divorce papers later." "Clara, what are you talking about?" Outraged, gasping from shock, Christina. "This is your grandson, your son Kevin. I never cheated on him with anyone. I swear." "You'll swear it in church if you have the guts." Her mother-in-law threw it back at her. "Neither my son nor I want anything more to do with you. Is that clear to you? If you don't want Kevin to sand your reputation down so that you can't get a job in this town, you'd better get out of here while you still can. We don't want any loose girls in our family." With these words, Slaga turned around and silently headed back into the house, paying no attention to the crying. The sobs of her unhappy daughter-in-law with a newborn baby in her arms. Now the young woman realized what had happened. Lord, she had thought some terrible tragedy had happened to her husband and mother-in-law. Knave. Turns out Clara had somehow managed to turn Kevin against her. But what could she tell him so that he unconditionally believed in this unfair, and most importantly, absolutely stupid lie. Wanting to understand what had happened, Christina went on foot back to the city to come to her husband's office to dot all the I's and cross all the T's. Christina got to her husband's office, being almost exhausted. With great difficulty, she managed to persuade the guard to let her through. The woman imagined how it looked from the outside, with a bag over her shoulder, covered in road dust, and with a baby in her arms. What did she look like now? However, everything compared to the last chance to see her husband and finally talk to him. Approaching his office, Christina took a few minutes to gather her courage. Strangely enough, no one was visible nearby. Even the place of Kevin's secretary was empty. And at that moment, the young mother heard strange sounds coming from her husband's office. Pushing the door open with her free hand, the woman stepped confidently inside. However, the sight that opened up to her completely de-energized Christina, making her legs go absorbent cotton. "Christina!" Kevin hurriedly corrected himself. "What are you doing here?" The secretary, a tall girl with long curly hair and huge swollen lips, only looked at her boss's wife contemptuously from head to toe, then easily jumped down from the table. The damsel defiantly threw on her jacket and, leaving the office, said to Kevin, "Call me when you're done." When she and her husband were alone, the woman immediately attacked her husband with reproaches. "Kevin, what is the meaning of this? Don't tell me I got it all wrong. You mean you don't even lock the door anymore, so sure that you and that girl won't be disturbed? Why didn't you come and get me? You didn't even call me. I walked from the gas station to our house and then back, because your mother wouldn't let me and her grandson, our son by the way, into our house. And now you're cheating on me. How long has this been going on?" Why, instead of remorse, she read on the face of her husband only contempt. She'd never seen him like this before. "Are you not even ashamed?" she asked her husband in a weak voice. A cheeky smile played on Kevin's lips. "Mom did the right thing, and what, in fact, can I do?" In response, Christina gave him a confused, uncomprehending look. "Are you saying that you don't understand anything?" Kevin interrogated her caustically. "You dare to stutter about it?" He nodded dismissively at the newborn Ethan. "Is that my baby?" "I don't understand anything, Kevin. Explain it to me." Christina sobbed. At that moment, Ethan woke up in her arms and cried softly. Kevin clutched his head and ruffled his beautiful dark hair. His face burned with a wild blush, as if he were sick, but his eyes remained as cold as ice. "Look," he said to his wife, after a few minutes, showing her some pictures on his phone. "Now you tell me, how do you explain this, and who is this strange man hugging you, my pregnant wife, in some cafe?" Christina leaned over to the smartphone screen to get a better look at the series of photos she was pictured in, supposedly with her lover, flipping to the right 5 photos in a row. Christina felt her legs grow colder and colder with each new photo. Finally, she carefully sat down on the office chair and placed Ethan on her husband's desk. "Jesus," she whispered. "Kevin, where did you get those pictures?" The woman's eyes flashed with such intense desperation that it was physically impossible for her husband to lie to her. "What's the difference?" "Mom sent them," he finally admitted. "She was watching you just before you went into labor. She sensed the baby wasn't mine, so she tried to get proof." "Proof of what?" "Kevin is my classmate Jacob. I hadn't seen him in almost 15 years. We ran into each other at the center that day. He offered to help me carry my bags to a cab. If that were true, he wouldn't have touched you so boldly." Kevin shouted stubbornly, "Don't yell like that. You've already scared our son." Shouted to him, unable to contain her spouse's feelings. Yes, I went with him to the cafe. We had coffee and friendly. I repeat, especially for you and a friendly hug, and that's all. Nothing happened. That's not my son, don't lie to me. The businessman continued to stand his ground. How do I know you haven't met him before? And this child is not his. We can do a DNA test if you're so overcome with paranoia. Couldn't resist a little sarcasm, Christina. But how would you feel about that? What kind of trust are we talking about here? Kevin made a big circle around his office, and then with all his might slammed both fists on the table. Insane, Christina exclaimed, barely managing to grab Ethan out from under his arms. You and your mother have gone completely insane. How could you disown me so quickly? How could you believe her, knowing how much pain she has caused me and always intended to cause our family as well? My mother would never lie to me about such things. Kevin answered her with a grim smile. Also, she brought me his tie, didn't she? That freak who is supposedly your classmate. That you played with him somewhere and forgot to return the tie to your lover? Christina laughed hysterically. Kevin, but you realize that she simply gave it to me. How can you believe in such blatant nonsense? If we're being honest, don't you carry around souvenirs from your secretary? And then it happened that forever divided the young mother's life into before and after. In a fit of anger, Kevin flew up to his wife and slapped her across the face with a ringing slap. Christina barely stayed on her feet, clutching her son tightly to her chest, glaring at her good husband, who didn't seem to have expected such a reaction from himself. Christina walked silently to the door. Christina, no, wait. Her husband wanted to justify himself, but she shook her head negatively. Stay away from me, the woman said through gritted teeth. Don't ever come near Ethan and me again. The next second, the young mother slipped through the doors like a cat and dashed for the elevator and farther downstairs. Away from this horrible person and place. Christina herself did not remember how long she ran. The young mother came to her senses only after a couple of hours. It turned out that she was sitting and crying on a playground in some yard. Little Ethan had fallen asleep in her arms, but that didn't make Christina feel any better. She no longer had anything to feed him when he woke up. From the stress she had been through, the young mother had completely lost her milk, not knowing what to do with no money and no further plan. The woman just sat on the bench and stared at one point as she continued to rock her baby. Tears of pain and disappointment rolled down her face and hail. Another betrayal of a loved one had hit Christina's nervous system too hard. Christina, is that you? A pleasant female voice suddenly sounded behind the young woman. Christina slowly turned around. Looking at the person who spoke, Christina even stiffened with amazement. In front of her stood her high school literature teacher, Vanessa, a diminutive older woman who was already in her late 70s. Looking at Christina with the same warm, affectionate smile she had when she was a child. Vanessa, how did you recognize me? The woman whispered in a voice weak from fatigue and hunger. The woman only grinned in response. How could I not recognize you, my dear? I remember all my students. I have such a photographic memory. What are you doing here? Are you sitting here all alone? How small is your baby? You must have just given birth. Christina nodded silently. Then her former teacher came closer and looked carefully into Christina's face. My dear, I can see you need help. Let's go to my place. I don't live far away. I have hot soup. You can eat and feed your baby. Shall we? No, I can't, weakly objected Christina. That I will burden you with my problems. Now I'll sit here a little rest, and Ethan and I will think of something. Right, Ethan? Christina looked at her son with inexpressible tenderness. After that, Vanessa was convinced that her former student was in a bad way. "Christina, don't give me any ideas," she said in a slightly more stern tone. "Where are you going now in the evening with a child? To the train station? And yourself and your little one you want to jeopardize?" "No, I feel really bad, Vanessa. I'm not sure you'd be comfortable with me and my son." "Don't you worry about whether I'm comfortable or not. If I wasn't comfortable, I wouldn't have offered. Right? Come on, get up. Don't sit in the cold, you'll get sick." Some time later, Christina was already eating hot soup and a big piece of black bread. And little Ethan, washed and dressed, was lying in a cozy wooden cradle. "It was left from my granddaughter," she explained to Christina. "My daughter had given birth, and then when Lisa's crib became too small, we wanted to throw it away, but I felt too sorry for it, so I kept it." "Thank you, Vanessa." The young mother thanked her from the bottom of her heart. "If it were not for you, I really do not know where we would be now. It all came at once. There is no end to my problems." Christina drove a spoon around the bottom of the plate. "And you tell me what happened to you." The old woman advised her. "Maybe the two of us will figure it out faster. What should you do next? Are you sure you want to hear this?" Just in case, the young woman asked again. "I'm afraid there is much less pleasant in this story than disgusting. Let's get started," cheerfully suggested the old woman. "I'm an old man. I'll find something to say if it's really hard. Don't worry." And Christina told her the whole story. Finally, when the former student told her savior how her husband dared to raise his hand on her, Vanessa only splashed her hands. "What kind of a bastard is that? No, how is it possible so native son and not recognize? I tried to explain everything to him, but he was as if in a trance. He didn't want to listen to me." Christina explained. "First he threw accusations, and then he attacked you." "What a raging dog," the teacher finished for her. "I'll tell you something, Christina. A mother's influence on her child is very great. If it was his mother who turned him against you, then there's no choice. He'll choose her over you. That's what's so terrible." Almost crying, Christina said to the teacher, "I don't understand. At what point and why did he suddenly change so much towards me? Here is the cross that I never cheated on my husband." Christina crossed herself 3 times, and he, just out of her door, immediately began an affair with his secretary. Christina, unable to bear the pressure of her feelings, burst into tears. Vanessa immediately began to comfort her. "Don't cry so much, don't worry. Now you have someone to care for you and to give your love to. If your husband does not come to his senses, then he is not your man. And such things happen in life, and you can live with it." But what about Vanessa? Burying herself in the woman's lap, sobbing, Christina whispered, "I love him so much. I can't see my life without him." Can't see or can't see? There are 2 big differences. The old woman grinned. "If you think that you will love him all your life, then you need to understand what and how. Talk to him again. But if you feel that your love for him is over, you don't need to try and rekindle that extinguished fire. Then life has a different road in store for you." Christina stopped crying and looked at the old woman again. "Wow, and I didn't even think about it," she said. "I once loved him very much. I was ready to give my life for him. But after today," the young woman hesitated for a moment before answering. "After he hit me, it was like something inside me broke. You know, as if a rope had been sawed through, and everything, the weight attached to it, was flying into the abyss. And I, like that weight, am flying somewhere I don't know where to." Vanessa smiled. "Maybe you are not flying to the abyss, but on the contrary, you are flying up to the sky. Think about it. The old woman winked at her pupil. "Now let's get ready for bed. I'll make a bed for you and the baby in my daughter's former room. I have fresh linen and new furniture. Sleep well, and tomorrow we'll think about what you should do. You will stay with me for now. It will be easier together." Christina thanked Vanessa as she had never thanked anyone in her life. Who would have thought that after so many years, she would not only meet her former teacher, but also get from her the only one of all support, and the best help that she could give Christina at that moment. And so they all began to live together. Vanessa's payment was enough to feed not only herself, but also Christina. The young mother ate very little and used to do with the simplest products. The half-starved childhood with Aunt Betty was an influence. However, the young woman could not afford to just hang on the neck of her former teacher. So soon she went to work. Kevin, it seems, fulfilled the promise made to his wife by his mother and deprived his wife of the opportunity to get a job back in at least some more or less decent place. But Christina did not despair. She went to work to put up ads. She did it quickly. It took her a couple of hours a day, and then got the money and hurried to the store to buy all the necessary things for her son. One day, when Christina stood at the bus stop and passed at the next batch of outdoor ads, she was called by a familiar voice. "Christina, Christina, how did you get here?" Hearing the familiar timbre, the woman cringed. Less than anything else in the world. She wanted Jacob, the same high school classmate who had caused her to leave her husband, to see her like this. "I can see it's you, Christina. Stop it, please." She turned to face the man and read the mute amazement in his eyes. "What does it mean?" he asked seriously. "The last time I saw you, you were doing great. You were going to be a mother. And now, is the baby okay?" Jacob sounded worried, and Christina was pleased that he still remembered how she felt the last time they met. "Don't worry, Jacob. Everything's fine. I had a boy named Ethan." "Oh, thank God." He exhaled. "It's just that you said the doctors wanted to monitor you longer. So you're going to the hospital earlier." Christina smiled, embarrassed, and there was an awkward silence between them. "How are you doing?" Christina asked casually. "What are you doing in this neighborhood?" Jacob smiled and pointed at the bulky bags in his hands. "Yes, I want to visit my mom. I've been promising for a long time, but I haven't had time. We opened 2 new salons last week. I had to check so many documents. It was horrible." Bright eyes of the classmate looked at Christina with such calmness and kindness that she involuntarily transferred his positive outlook on life. She remembered that Jacob ran a chain of car dealerships around the city. His business was doing well. "Do you want me to help you carry the bags?" Christina asked him out of the blue. She didn't know why she wanted to offer him that now. After all, what does she have to lose? Her husband's love could not be returned to her anyway. Jacob was not to blame for the fact that Clara used him in her nefarious plans to get rid of a bad daughter-in-law, and the classmate always treated her well and even began to worry about the health of her tiny son. "Won't you get scolded?" asked Jacob, pointing to the stack of ads in her bag. "No, I still have time." The woman answered him cheerfully and picked up one of his grocery bags. As they'd approached the house where her mother lived, Christina had a strange feeling in her heart. But when they entered the entrance and began to climb to the 3rd floor, the woman's eyes— "Okay, Mom, I'll go, I guess. I will not take you, Christina, from important matters." Jacob suddenly started to go, and his mother just grinned. "Oh, look at him, Christina. What a businessman. All this business is burning under his feet, that he cannot even an extra 5 minutes with his mother to sit." Christina genuinely admired watching the relationship between Jacob and his mother. Unlike her experience and what she had seen between Kevin and Clara, there was not even a hint of the dependency and manipulative tendencies that her mother-in-law possessed to perfection. Yes, these people behaved much more simply, but there was such kindness and love in their hearts, the kind you don't see every day between parents and children these days. "Christina, then let's meet on Monday," Jacob suggested. "I'll take you right away from here and pick you up and show you everything you need to do in our salon, okay?" "Sure." The woman nodded to him. "Jacob, thank you so much again. If it weren't for you." "Don't go on." Waved goodbye to her classmate. "That's it. I'm off. I'll call you the other day." 6 months flew by. Christina studied at Jacob's company and started working as a manager. She and her son rented their own, quite comfortable apartment, and every week they came to visit Vanessa. Jacob himself didn't mind. During the time they worked together, the former classmates felt that they were united by something much deeper than the usual working relationship. Jacob was easier to talk to than Kevin. He had a good sense of humor, but most surprisingly, he was able to get along with Ethan right away. Christina, watching them play in those moments when the man stopped by her house, was only amused. Of course, Jacob gave toys to the child, and with his mother he solved exclusively business issues in the kitchen. But they both already felt how between them formed some new, completely unlike anything else connection. And then one day the man decided to invite the young mom on their first real date. Jacob was very excited and prepared a huge bouquet of scarlet roses for his companion. Christina appreciated the compliment. She was pleased with such attention. After all, despite all the ordeals, part of her feminine soul still wanted warmth and care. Wow! And where are we going to go with such a bouquet? Surprised Christina. "We will not be allowed to go to the museum." "And we will not go to the museum." Jacob agreed. "Let's you now put the flowers in a vase at home, and then we'll go to the opera. I got 2 tickets to the Mermaid. I think you're gonna love it. I can't believe you like opera." The woman admired me wholeheartedly. "Sometimes for a change," nodded the businessman. A few minutes after Christina took the bouquet upstairs, Jacob opened the door of his snow-white car in front of her. "Please, my dear lady, today a rich cultural program awaits you." "Oh, don't call me lady, okay?" she asked him. "I have not liked this title recently." Jacob understood what she was saying and promised her not to do it again. Christina and her mother told him in general terms about what had happened, avoiding unnecessarily dramatic details. However, the main conclusion the young man had already made for himself. This Kevin and his strange mother are real monsters. After the opera, which Christina really liked very much, the couple decided to walk around the central square. That's where their first kiss happened between them. Jacob did not remember exactly how he embraced his companion. He only felt a long and strong golden thread between his heart and Christina's heart. "What will happen to us now?" Christina whispered to him, pulling away reluctantly from his lips. "What will happen? You'll divorce your husband, we'll get married, and I'll adopt Ethan." Christina gently pulled away from her classmate. "Are you seriously telling me this now?" she asked, looking Jacob in the eyes. "Are you really ready to live with us for the rest of your life?" "Think carefully. To your friends, I'll be a divorcee with a trailer. I think that's what they call it now." Jacob gave a short laugh. "I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I'm going to marry you, not public opinion." "Christina, I've loved you since the 5th grade. It's just that you got lost after school, and when we met, you were all ready. Don't continue." Softly said the girl and again pressed against him in a tender kiss. "Jacob, there is only one thing I want to warn you about." "What is it?" Her companion frowned slightly. "If you betray me, I'm like that mermaid. I won't survive it. My heart just can't take it anymore, and I'll turn to foam." Jacob lovingly embraced Christina, and they looked up at the huge moon hanging over their heads. "Then it's in my interest to keep you from turning into a mermaid." Jacob smiled. "You will remain a man, a woman, and my wife, and the mother of Ethan, and then, perhaps, of our children." "Oh, Jacob," blissfully whispered Christina and pressed against the shoulder of her lover. "You've always been like that since high school." "What?" cheerfully asked her man. What funny?" Joyfully touching the tip of his nose, Christina shrieked with happiness, and they spun in a silent dance on the sidewalk. That evening was one of the most beautiful in the young mother's life. That evening on their way back, they stopped at Vanessa's house, where Ethan was visiting. Christina asked the woman for permission to leave her son with her for a few hours, and the former teacher gladly agreed. Christina wanted to pick up her boy to go to her apartment with him. But no sooner had she and Jacob made a couple of steps towards the entrance, as the road was blocked by a huge black Jeep, painfully familiar to the young woman. "Hello, wife." Kevin fell out of the cab and greeted his wife with a slurred tongue. Noticing a companion beside her, the businessman immediately dared, trying to pretend that he was fine. "Kevin, why did you come here?" Christina marveled at his appearance. "In fact, how did you find me?" The woman smelled the strong odor of very strong drink coming from her husband. Kevin had definitely had too much cognac. "God, buddy, how could you even get behind the wheel in such a state?" asked Jacob. And he carefully stepped in front of Christina and closed her from her husband with his back. Kevin's gaze was cloudy, but Kevin could read the displeased expression in it. "That's right, hide her from me. She's such a treasure, and if she runs away from you, you'll be looking for her for 6 months. Kevin, what do you want from me? I ask you again?" Christina stepped forward. She really wanted to get this over with once and for all. "How so?" Her husband tried to take an upright position, but he did not succeed, so that he had to lean on the door of his own car again. "I want to talk to my wife and see my son." Christina was indignant. For a second, she even lost the power of speech. "Wow, and you were good. You did not waste time." Kevin said. "Vaughn found another sponsor, or wait a minute." The businessman took a closer look at Jacob. "So it's the same face in profile." "Dan, Christina, so you were having an affair with that creepy guy after all. I guess I was fooled after all, wasn't I?" Christina did something she'd wanted to do for a long time. She went over and gave her scoundrel of a husband a well-deserved slap. "He wants to see his son. That's how you talk. And when we had nothing to eat, because you blocked all our cards, did you also think about your son? Or maybe when you slept with your secretary, you only dreamed of reading a bedtime story to your newborn son. You're a bastard, Kevin. The lowest, meanest person I've ever known. And speaking of Ethan, you shouldn't have come. If it makes you feel any better, he's not your son. Ethan is my child alone. And believe me, I'm raising him to be a normal person, not like you." Turning on her heels, Christina wanted to leave, but Kevin suddenly grabbed her arm. "You're stupid. Don't you know what you're doing?" "Yeah, we had a little fight, but you should have understood me too. I pressed my mother later, by the way. She admitted that she set you up, that it wasn't your fault. Congratulations," with irony said Christina, and pulled her elbow from his weak grip. "The mystery is solved, but you're too late. I have a different life now. Christina, you're not leaving me." Kevin shouted to her and tried to hug her, but Jacob stepped in. "Hey you, get your hands off her. The girl told you clearly that she doesn't want to talk to you anymore. What more do you want? You lost your chance. So go away. Who the hell are you to talk to me like that? Kevin was outraged. I'm her lawfully wedded husband, and who are you? You're a lover, a party boy. Kevin tried to hit his opponent. However, Jacob easily dodged and gave the offender a light kick in the shoulder area. It was enough to make Christina's husband unable to keep his balance and fell on his back. Fortunately, Jacob managed to pick him up in time and load him into his own car. God, what are we going to do with him now? Asked a confused Christina. Obviously, we cannot leave him here in this condition. But I don't want him to sleep in Ethan's in my apartment. Don't worry, we'll order a cab and have a tow truck take him home to his mother. And the car to the impound lot so he doesn't get any more trouble. Agreeing that Jacob's plan was logical, Christina called all the necessary services from her phone. When she gave the cab driver the address, Kevin came to his senses for a few minutes and mumbled something like, "You were always right. Mom was right, but I loved her so much." Jacob glanced questioningly at Christina, but she shrugged her shoulders in confusion. Feeling responsible for her ex-husband, Christina later called back the cab dispatcher and made sure that Kevin was driven home without incident. That was the end of their unexpected encounter. Going to bed that night, Christina thought about filing the divorce papers herself. Of course, she would not claim a penny of his money, but she just wanted to close this unfortunate chapter of her life and think about what good things might await her together ahead with Jacob. The next 2 weeks passed for Christina as usual, with work and taking care of Ethan. Every now and then she would see Jacob, and they had a wonderful time together. The man could surprise Christina with the most ordinary things, like cheesecakes in the morning or choosing her favorite movie for movie night. And as it turned out, they didn't have to spend $1 million at all to feel completely happy. Christina filed the divorce papers first, but she never heard back, deciding that Kevin was probably being stubborn again or doing some nonsense like making another revenge plan. The woman let the situation go and went on about her usual business. Toward the end of the week on Friday, the doorbell of her new apartment rang unexpectedly. Since Christina had the day off that day, she was very surprised. She and Jacob had agreed that they would meet only in the afternoon and that he would not bother her in the morning and would let the young mother sleep. Opening the door, Christina was immediately awake, but also pale. On the threshold stood Clara. She was all in black, her eyes were full of inexpressible sadness, and it was as if she had aged 10 years. "I know you are not very happy about my visit. My mother-in-law started at the door, but I couldn't help but tell you this sad news. Clara, what's going on?" Christina was worried sick. "Come in. Would you like water or tea?" "Water will be fine." The old lady thanked her. She held a thin cotton handkerchief to her mascara-smeared eyes. "Sit down." Clara asked her when Christina brought her a glass. "I need to have a serious talk with you." "Jesus, I've lived to tell the tale. I don't even know where to begin." Christina waited patiently for what her mother-in-law would say, while she looked toward the crib, where her son was about to wake up. "In general, I know that you have filed the divorce papers with my son. Started it. And believe me, I would have been happy if you were separated, but circumstances have changed. Clara, please," Christina asked her. "Ethan will be awake any minute. He needs to be fed. I haven't even put water under the porridge yet." "Ethan?" She cheered up. "That's a nice name. Christina, you don't have to divorce my son because he's gone. He's dead." Christina was struck by lightning. "What are you talking about? What do you mean dead? I just saw him a couple weeks ago. I wondered how he found me." "It's true, Christina. Our Kevin is gone. He's dead, okay. He died in a car accident. Clara could no longer contain her grief and burst into tears. And no handkerchief could help her absorb the grief of her son's untimely death. But how could this have happened? Christina was the only one who could find the words to ask. She couldn't believe what had happened. Her brain simply refused to accept this information. Even with all the pain that lay between them, she never wished such a fate for her husband. After you left, he wasn't himself. The mother-in-law began. As it turned out, he already had serious problems in business, and your departure only aggravated everything. The woman pressed her handkerchief to her eyes again. I hope you realize that I was not the cause of the breakup of my family with Kevin. Cautiously, Christina asked. Of course not, Christina. I'm so ashamed now. If you only knew. Forgive me if you can, she said sincerely. And something in her words convinced the woman that Kevin's mother was telling the truth. I've been so unfair to you, so cruel. I went and bought that damn tie myself just to belittle you in my son's eyes. You old fool. The mother-in-law was silent for a while before continuing. Her son's problems had gotten to the point where he had to borrow a very large sum of money from some very dangerous people. And then the deal he was counting on fell through. And now my son is trying to get rid of these bandits by any means necessary. But they only intensified. They said that if you don't pay back the money in time, you and your business will be finished. It wasn't an accident. Was he helped into it? With pale lips, Christina asked. I'm afraid he helped himself. Hardly, sighed the mother-in-law. He started drinking very heavily. Gambling, hoping thereby to make more easy money. But it was all in vain. His whole life and business had collapsed in just a few weeks. The police said that when they found his car, it was like a tin can. An old woman cried softly. The doctor said he had off the charts booze in his blood, so I really want to believe it was just an accident, but we'll never know the truth. God, Clara, I'm so sorry. Christina shook hands with her mother-in-law. Believe me, if you need help, I'll do anything. Just say the word. No, honey, it's okay. We already buried Kevin last Sunday. But thank you for your condolences anyway. It's unexpectedly nice to hear from someone you practically left in the dust. God, if you only knew how disgusted I am with myself when I realize how easily and aimlessly I ruined your life just for fun, just to show Kevin that I am better than you and you are not worthy of my son. Calm down, Clara. Christina smiled weakly. I've been doing fine for a long time. I'm with Ethan, and this is the greatest gift your son could give me. Her mother-in-law smiled back shyly and then asked quietly, Christina, sweetheart, can I see Ethan, at least with one eye? This request greatly surprised Christina. She had thought that this woman wanted nothing to do with her and her grandson. After thinking for a while, Christina asked, Are you sure? Mind you, I'll go for him like a wolf. I'll go straight for his throat. No, no, no. The old woman waved her hands at her. I know that you gave birth to my son, but only now I realize that Ethan is the only thing left in this world of my poor Kevin. Let's go then, nodded Christina and led the old woman to the crib. Oh, he's so cute. He looks just like Kevin when he was a baby. She pressed her hands to Clara's face. Christina, I beg you, let me see my grandson, at least sometimes, at least a couple of times a month. Christina only smiled calmly. From the fact that I forbid you to see him, you will not cease to be his own grandmother, Clara. Of course you can communicate with your grandson. Just call me first so I can get a time frame. Okay, I have a job, and I'm not alone anymore. My mother-in-law pressed her lips together, but didn't say anything. It was too precious to her to be able to see her with her little Ethan. Besides, she and Christina had nothing more to share. Clara had lost her son, and her daughter-in-law her husband, who had betrayed her by believing the words of his treacherous mother. Christina was right. That's where she and her son turned out to be both good. A few months later, Christina and Jacob played a beautiful wedding in nature. There were many guests among their friends and employees from the car dealership. The celebration turned out to be very heartfelt and light, not like the stuffy social reception that Christina had to endure in her first marriage. Clara was also at her ex-sister-in-law's second wedding, and to her surprise, she experienced an amazing mental comfort from the fact that she didn't have to keep her face in front of someone all the time, but on the contrary, she could just relax. She continues to socialize with little Ethan and really enjoys it. The woman was forced to sell her son's luxurious mansion for debts, and now she lives in a modest 2-room apartment where she receives her acquaintances and Christina and her grandson. Jacob and Christina still work in a car dealership. Their business is gaining momentum, and they are considered one of the most successful players in the car market. Recently, Christina delighted her husband with the news that she is expecting a baby again. The ultrasound showed that it will be a girl, so Ethan will soon have a baby sister. That's how a bad daughter-in-law was able to literally build her life anew and even help her once conniving mother-in-law realize one simple lesson. There is always room for boomerangs in life, and evil, as well as good, is sure to return to the one who committed it.